Chapter 17:18. He had used his breakthrough heavenly tribulation to inflict damage to his surroundings several times. The problem was that it was very dangerous. The more people there were, the more powerful it would be. As such, it was a vicious technique that dealt a heavy blow to the enemy. He didn't dare to use it unless he had no other choice. These techniques were too vicious, and he would die if he wasn't careful. He had already accumulated enough experience to break through to the heavenly god realm. The amount of experience he had gained from killing so many area lords was terrifying. As such, he had finally accumulated enough experience to break through to the heavenly god realm. He didn't want to use it at first, but he had no choice now. According to his senses, heavenly goddess Wuxia and the others were still quite a distance away. Even if they managed to escape, there was still the heretical emperor above them. If they didn't suppress him, they really wouldn't be able to escape. Furthermore, judging from the current situation, heavenly goddess Wuxia and the others were probably going to lose half of their forces. He absolutely couldn't allow that to happen. He was the alliance leader, and he had to be responsible for his allies. If he lost more than half of the area lords, it would be a mistake on his part as the alliance leader. It had to be said that he really had miscalculated. He didn't think that the heretical emperor would be so powerful. After all, based on what had happened in the past, he should have been able to deal with so many area lords. Who would have thought that after awakening, he would be able to fuse with such powerful energy? Breakthrough. Ding. Experience deducted. Beginning breakthrough to heavenly god. Progress at 1%. In the next second, all types of tribulation cloud began to appear in the air, engulfing Etianyan and the others. Everyone was given a fright, and turned to look at him. The alliance leader broke through to the heavenly god realm so quickly? This isn't a matter of speed, right? Does he want to die by choosing to break through here? No, he wants to save us and stop the heretical emperor. That's why he's doing this. But if he does this, the difficulty of his heavenly tribulation will increase. The other area lords immediately guessed Etianyan's intentions. No one wanted to break through here. He was clearly trying to disrupt the heretical emperor, so that they would be fine. However, Etianyan's heavenly tribulation would be much more difficult than an ordinary heavenly god's heavenly tribulation. However, the power of his heavenly tribulation was no ordinary heavenly tribulation, but the most powerful heavenly tribulation. Boom! The terrifying tribulation cloud began to surge in all directions, layer after layer. It was extremely compatible with the foundation of the Earth Monarch 10 refinements, and 10 layers were superimposed. The foundation of the 10 refinements Earth Monarch would continue to affect the future breakthroughs in cultivation. As a result, it became more and more terrifying. Layer upon layer of tribulation lightning stacked on top of each other, and tribulation lightning of all colors shot out in all directions like crazy. At the same time, Etianyan rushed towards Evil Emperor. He wasn't afraid of him at all. Just as Etianyan was about to get close to the Evil Emperor, the tribulation lightning struck down and sent the Evil Emperor flying. The insufferably arrogant Vile Emperor had been sent flying just like that. Although he wasn't injured, the fact that such a heaven-defying Vile Emperor had been sent flying was quite shocking. A heavenly tribulation is a heavenly tribulation. Everyone is an ant under a heavenly tribulation. Etianyan's eyes narrowed. As expected, no matter how hard he tried to break through, he still couldn't break through the suppression of the heavenly tribulation. It seemed that if he did not break through to the higher God Emperor realm, he would still be suppressed by the heavenly tribulation, unable to resist. Damn it, he's actually breaking through here. After the Evil Emperor was sent flying, his face became covered in dirt. His situation wasn't too bad, which was enough to show how thick his skin was. The problem was that he didn't have any, but he couldn't continue attacking. Before he could even reach Etianyan, he would have been sent flying by the heavenly tribulation. Does it feel good? Let's do it a few more times. Etianyan laughed loudly and continued to chase after the Evil Emperor. Originally, the Evil Emperor was chasing after Etianyan, but now it was his turn to chase after the Evil Emperor. When Etianyan got close, the heavenly tribulation immediately descended and fiercely struck towards the Evil Emperor. It wasn't just the Evil Emperor, the other evil spirit race were also affected. the heavenly tribulation smashed down, and if they didn't die, they would be injured. The heavenly tribulation was just that terrifying, especially the heavenly tribulation that broke through to the heavenly God level. When someone got close, it would strike down, no matter who it was. However, correspondingly, the power of the heavenly tribulation that Tianyin endured would become stronger and stronger. This was the reason why the heavenly tribulation determined that someone was helping Tianyin transcend the tribulation, which was why the heavenly tribulation would become stronger and stronger. As long as one got close to the heavenly tribulation, they would be judged as helping to transcend the tribulation. Naturally, the difficulty would increase. This meant that if someone wanted to kill the person who was transcending the tribulation, they would be able to increase the power by just getting a little closer. This was a taboo for most people who were transcending tribulation. The power of the heavenly tribulation was already terrifying enough. If it increased, wouldn't that be fatal? Of course, Tianyin wasn't afraid of these heavenly tribulations. He had a crazy damage mode, so he could still accept it. Right now he only needed to chase after the evil emperor. At the same time he could attack the other evil spirit races, so why not? Boom! Another bolt of tribulation lightning and tribulation fire swept down, sending the evil emperor flying. The evil emperor let out a low roar and rolled a few times in the air, looking a bit miserable. The problem was that he just looked extremely miserable. However, the rest of the evil spirit race weren't so lucky. Those with slightly lower cultivation were directly blasted into pieces, or they were directly seriously injured and sent flying, and then easily killed by the other territory lords. Correspondingly, the power of the heavenly tribulation became more and more terrifying. It had already surpassed the heavenly tribulation of all the heavenly gods. It could be said that it was the first heavenly tribulation below the heavenly gods. The evil emperor is being chased. The Tianyin territory lord is really ruthless. But if this continues, can the Tianyin territory lord withstand such a terrifying heavenly tribulation? Even I feel that it will be extremely difficult to deal with it. This is the 10th level of the heavenly tribulation, which means that the Tianyin territory lord is a 10 refining earth lord. Oh my god, this is a legendary level. The Tianyin territory lord is actually a 10 refining earth lord. This is really incredible. What should we do now? We can't help him. We can only help to clear the surrounding evil spirit race. The other territory lords were very worried about Tianyin. They were fine and would not be attacked by the evil emperor, but now it was Tianyin's turn to be in trouble. While they were worried, Tianyin sent a voice transmission to them. Everyone, help to resist the other evil spirit races. Soon, the rescued heaven creator race will be able to escape. When that time comes, run away immediately, don't worry about me. They were all stunned. In that case, Tianyin was really going all out. They could still resist the evil emperor now. If Tianyin succeeded in breaking through, when the heavenly tribulation disappeared, it would be Tianyin's time to die. Chapter 1719. The sight of him being chased by Tianyin was hilarious. The previously arrogant heretical emperor was now in a sorry state. The heavenly tribulation kept striking him and sending him flying. Correspondingly, Tianyin was also enduring the strikes of the heavenly tribulation. It was difficult for him to block them. Even if he tried to retaliate, he would feel numb and uncomfortable when he was struck. However, right now he could only use this chance to continue chasing after the evil emperor and try to stop him for a while. Damn it, you despicable human. How dare you use the heavenly tribulation to suppress me? The heretical emperor gritted his teeth. Tianyin was guarding the side of the passage. He couldn't defeat the Fecta region master even if he wanted to. As long as Tianyin was there, he couldn't go over. He could only watch from the sidelines. As soon as he got closer, Tianyin immediately came over and chased him for a while. Even the domineering heretical emperor couldn't get close. The power of the heavenly tribulation was on full display here. Even someone as strong as the heretical emperor couldn't block it. So what if I use the heavenly tribulation to suppress you? Come and kill me if you can. Tianyin laughed in disdain. Even though Tianyin had used the heavenly tribulation to suppress the heretical emperor, who cared about fairness. Defeating the heretical emperor was the right thing to do. I hope you can withstand the heavenly tribulation. If you do, you're dead. The heretical emperor's eyes were bloodshot. He wanted to crush Yi Tianyan to death, but he couldn't. The closer he got to Yi Tianyan, the stronger the heavenly tribulation became. That was why he couldn't kill Yi Tianyan. Just like when they were outside the barrier, he wanted to kill Yi Tianyan, but he couldn't do it. He didn't care if he was in Yi Tianyan's territory, but he was still being suppressed in his own territory. It was very displeasing. But even though he was displeased, the evil emperor could only wait and hope that Yi Tianyan would be killed by the heavenly tribulation. However, Yi Tianyan was able to withstand the heavenly tribulations that were constantly descending. It looked like he was having a relatively easy time. Although its power had increased by quite a bit, it was still within an acceptable range. As time passed by, Heavenly Goddess Yuji and the others quickly approached this place, and they finally emerged from the passageway. Yi Tianyan immediately sent a telepathic message to the Fecta domain ruler. Everyone is out. There's no need to hold on any longer. Good. The Fecta domain lord roared and loosened the hand seal. The moment he released the seal, the passageway immediately closed up. Originally, it was forcefully closed, but it was forced open. In a situation where it wasn't fully opened, it was instantly closed. In this way, the passageway was closed and the evil god army couldn't catch up. Evil Emperor had forcefully closed the tunnel, but it had actually helped them escape. It's Empyrean Goddess Yuji and the others. The other heaven creators were overjoyed when they saw Empyrean Goddess Yuji and the others. In the beginning, they really didn't believe that a coordinated attack could be carried out. They didn't know how Yi Tianyan had managed to do this, but it looked like he had really done it. All of their companions who had been captured had now escaped. After Heavenly Goddess Yuji and the others escaped, they immediately saw the chaotic situation outside, as well as their own brethren. All of them were overjoyed. Just as Yi Tianyan had said, they had managed to carry out a coordinated attack. Even though they already knew this was going to happen, they were still very touched when they saw it for themselves. They didn't think that Yi Tianyan would actually be able to pull this off, and they were extremely grateful toward him. However, this wasn't the time to be grateful. They had to escape first, then thank Yi Tianyan properly. Furthermore, they didn't even know who the master of the purple evil spirit puppet was. Take everyone and run. Yi Tianyan immediately issued an order to all of the domain lords. The Fecta domain lord and the others nodded, and they immediately fled with their people without any hesitation. You want to run? The evil emperor was enraged, and he immediately gave chase. How could Yi Tianyan allow the evil emperor to have his way? He immediately intercepted him. The heavenly tribulation covered a very large area. Even though Yi Tianyan couldn't outrun the evil emperor in terms of speed, the evil emperor would still enter the range of the heavenly tribulation and be struck by it. Under such circumstances, the heavenly tribulation was like an invisible wall that kept the evil emperor at bay. The rest of the evil spirit tribe members could catch up, but their cultivation bases were far inferior to the evil emperor's, so they were still able to resist the heavenly tribulation. The evil emperor's side was slightly more terrifying. As long as they could stop the evil emperor, they would be able to win. Don't even think about getting past me. Yi Tianyan punched out and shattered the tribulation lightning. His arm was a little numb from the impact, but it was still bearable. The heavenly tribulation's power was becoming more and more terrifying. Yi Tianyan had already activated his frenzied attack mode. Otherwise, he really wouldn't be able to resist such terrifying power. In particular, the power of the heavenly tribulation was stacking up, so he had already activated his frenzied attack mode, so that he could withstand the heavenly tribulation. Get out of my way! The evil emperor roared angrily. If so many of the heaven creators escaped this time, he would really lose all his face. He had already used his full strength, but he was still let go like this. What face would he have left? The evil emperor immediately charged over, wanting to stop the heaven creators and completely ignoring the heavenly tribulation. As bolts of tribulation lightning came crashing down, the evil emperor's body froze again and again, unable to continue forward. It was like stepping into a swamp. He couldn't walk quickly and instead he sank deeper and deeper. Tianyan quickly approached him, and a terrifying tribulation lightning came crashing down. Boom! The evil emperor was sent flying, and the surface of his body was charred black. However, he wasn't seriously injured. His skin was thick so he couldn't cause too much damage. However, sending him flying wasn't a problem. I said, don't even think about getting past me. Tianyan laughed. This was the effect he wanted. He didn't expect the heavenly tribulation's effect to be so good. Previously, he thought that he would be able to stop it slightly. Who knew that it would be so good? He easily stopped the evil emperor, and was trapped by him. Although he also felt very uncomfortable, at least he wouldn't be crushed. Bastard! The evil emperor roared angrily. Then he made a grabbing motion in the air. Suddenly, a black light burst forth from the void around him. Immediately afterward, a black canopy of the sky enveloped a large area around them. The domain lord, who had been trying to escape, immediately bounced back and was blocked by the thick canopy of the sky. What's this? They were all dumbstruck. How could there be such a setup? Heavenly Goddess Yuji and the others' expressions changed upon seeing this. Even the Fecta domain lord's expression darkened. Chapter 1720. I didn't expect you to force me to use this move. You're really capable. I admit that I've underestimated you. Now you're my biggest problem. The evil emperor looked coldly at Tianyan. Not only did you force me to use my awakening, but you also used the heavenly godly screen in advance. You're really capable. The evil emperor was so angry that he had even used the heavenly godly screen. Tianyan knew about the heavenly godly screen. After it was used, the surroundings would be enveloped by a thick shield that was very sturdy. The cultivators trapped inside would be suppressed in terms of both strength and defense. On the contrary, the evil spirit race would be greatly improved. This was like a formation that could strengthen oneself. It could restrain the enemy and strengthen oneself, becoming a super powerful formation. A long time ago, during the Battle of the God Emperors, it had been used once. Even if the cultivators trapped inside did not all die, they were almost dead. How could they not die when they were trapped inside and constantly attacked? Especially when they were trapped here in the base camp. If the evil spirit army kept coming out, they would be dead for sure. Most importantly, they had no reinforcements. This way, they would be one-sidedly suppressed. However, after using it once, it was basically impossible to use it a second time. It would take a long time to set it up before it could be used a second time. The price was also very high. This was most likely a mobile formation. If one looked closely, they would discover that the surrounding planets were connected to each other to form a corresponding formation. If the entire formation moved, it would be a mobile godly ultimate killing formation. It was no wonder that the Fecta domain lord and the others had such ugly expressions when they saw it. This meant that they were going to risk their lives and had only used it to make sure that they were trapped here. However, in theory it was a huge loss. Even though there were so many domain lords, there were still too few of them. If they used it on a battlefield with countless experts, it would be the most worthwhile. Seems like it's really an honor. Tianyan looked at the heavenly godly screen. Even though the heavenly tribulation was not blocked, it did not destroy the heavenly godly screen either. The two did not interfere with each other, mainly because the heavenly godly screen was far away. The heavenly tribulation did not touch the heavenly godly screen, so it was naturally fine. It is indeed your honor. And it is also the honor of the other region lords. Wasting one of my heaven gold divine screens is enough of an honor for all of you. The evil emperor turned to look at the other region lords and said coldly, "Destroy them." At that moment, the passageway opened quickly, and the demonic god army flew out from it. Not only the evil god army, but other elders also appeared. It could be said that all of them had been mobilized. Under such a large formation, it could be said that they had the upper hand. If they still didn't make a move, it would be a waste of an opportunity. After the evil god army came out, they quickly united and formed an evil spirits. This evil spirits was much larger than usual, which meant that they were much more powerful. The power of the other region lords was slightly suppressed, which meant that there was a double effect. Under such circumstances, the situation was not too optimistic. I want to see how you're going to help them this time. The evil king stared at Tianyun and said, even if you can stop me, don't think that my race doesn't have any experts left. That's true, but it's enough that I can stop you. If I can't stop you, I'm afraid that I won't even have a chance to resist. Tianyun still chose to stop the evil king. The situation had become dangerous, but it didn't mean that it was over. After all, if the evil king wasn't suppressed by anyone, together with the heavenly towering divine screen, he would really be finished. Then I want to see how long you can hold me back. The evil king didn't make a move this time. Instead, he flew to the side and just looked at him. It seemed like he didn't want to make a move. In any case, if he made a move, he would be sent flying by the heavenly tribulation. He might as well wait obediently. Relying on his other subordinates was enough to eliminate the other region lords. Especially under the heavenly towering divine screen, no one could escape, so there was no need to worry about not being able to eliminate them. Tianyun narrowed his eyes. Could it be that the evil king could always maintain his strongest state? He didn't believe that. I can't hold you back for too long, but I can at least let you out of your awakened state. At that time, you won't be so strong. Tianyun smiled faintly. Is that so? Maybe I won't be that strong, but under the heavenly towering divine screen, even without the awakened state, I can still crush you. The evil king sneered. Is that so? Then I'm looking forward to it. Tianyun's eyes flashed. After he broke through to the heavenly god realm, he would still be able to fight the evil king. In crazy mode, his combat power would definitely not be weaker than the evil king. He wouldn't dare to say that he was stronger than the evil king, but at least he wouldn't be crushed. Tianyun Region Lord, we need to start breaking the heavenly towering divine screen now. It will take some time. Don't think that the heavenly towering divine screen is invincible. We can still break it. The Fecta Region Lord sent a voice transmission at this time to remind Tianyun not to despair. In fact, they still had a chance to escape. We can break it. Tianyun's eyes lit up. He thought that they would be trapped here to death. It seemed like there was still a chance to escape. Yes, our friends from the Sky Creator clan know how to break it. As long as we defend it, we can escape. The Fecta Region Lord and the others didn't despair. They were still full of hope. Okay, leave the evil king to me. You guys go ahead and break it. Tianyun only needed to guard the evil king. Then he started to resist the heavenly tribulation seriously. After a while, the evil king started to wake up. After that, a large number of the evil god army were bounced out. They looked very dispirited. It seemed that this state of fusion had consumed a lot of their energy. The evil king also looked very dispirited. However, he immediately started to swallow all kinds of elixirs to recover. He didn't do anything either. He just waited here. At the same time, the other evil god army joined the battlefield and fought with the other region lords. Tianyun couldn't stop them. He could only resist the heavenly tribulation and keep an eye on the evil king. Boom. Tianyun resisted the heavenly tribulation again and again. His body began to be tempered and strengthened crazily. He could feel that the power in his body began to increase greatly. At this time, the progress of his breakthrough had reached more than 80%. If this continued, he would soon complete the breakthrough. Even so, the situation on the Fecta Region Lord's side was not optimistic. He had already been attacked by the evil king. Now he was being suppressed by the heavenly towering divine screen and so many evil spirit tribe members. Everything was very dangerous. Many of the region lords started to get injured. Tianyun couldn't heal them. He could only watch them get injured. If this continued, they would soon die. Chapter 1721. If Tianyun wanted to break through to the heavenly god level, not only would his base stats increase significantly, but he would also be able to upgrade all of his skills and purchase powerful equipment sets. After breaking through to the heavenly god level, there were many skills that could be upgraded, including crazy mode. His current crazy mode was 128 times increase. Once he upgraded it to the next level, it would be 256 times. An explosive power of 256 times was absolutely terrifying. Originally, 128 times increase was already terrifying enough. Now that it was 256 times, the significance was completely different. Not only could he use crazy mode, but he could also purchase equipment sets. This meant that after breaking through to the heavenly god level, he would usher in a brand new transformation. Everything will change when I break through to the heavenly god level. Tianyun had a determined look in his eyes. In his eyes, as long as he broke through to the heavenly god level, his current predicament would change drastically. Escaping should not be an issue. However, he was the only one who thought this way. The other realm leaders and the evil spirit tribe did not think that Tianyun would be able to change anything after breaking through. In the eyes of the evil spirit tribe, Tianyun would die after he completed his breakthrough. He was arrogant because of the heavenly tribulation now, but once the heavenly tribulation dissipated, he would only be a lesser heavenly god. What could a lesser heavenly god do here? Any random celestial god would be a lower celestial god, and the slightly more powerful ones would be middle celestial gods. Under these circumstances, what was the point of breaking through to the lesser heavenly god level? Even if he could suppress the other evil spirit tribe members, Tianyun definitely would not be able to resist the power of the evil emperor. Thankfully, the Fecta realm leader and the others did not despair. They continued to break through the heavenly divine screen's defenses, but they did not know how long it would take for them to break through the heavenly divine screen's defenses. This heavenly divine screen is a little difficult to break. It will take a long time to break through. Heavenly Goddess Yuji and the others immediately felt that it would be a little difficult to break through. Now that things have come to this, we have no choice but to keep fighting, right? The Fecta realm leader was also aware of the difficulty involved, but no matter how difficult it was, they had no choice but to persevere. Otherwise, they would have to destroy the evil spirit tribe. In their current state, could they destroy the evil spirit race? Right now, the Sword Edge region lord and the others were frantically resisting the evil spirit race's attack. Especially when the evil god army fused together, the power that erupted out was the most shocking. It was almost a suppressive force that made it hard for them to breathe. Many of the domain lords were almost killed by a single punch. But even if they didn't die, they were heavily injured and could only retreat to the side to rest. Are we all going to die here? What happened to the 90% certainty? Now that we're all trapped here, if we all die here, that would be too much of a loss. Yeah, I don't want to die yet. I'm not willing to die here like this. The Alliance Master made a mistake. That's right, the Alliance Master made a mistake, and a very serious one at that. Many of the region lords started to feel pessimistic. They felt that Tianyun's plan was a huge mistake. Now that they were in deep danger, if they could not get rid of the Sky Creator race in time, they would really die here. With so many region lords dying here, many of the divine regions would be leaderless. They would definitely be in a state of chaos for a period of time, and they needed to deal with it. Especially when their morale plummeted, this was not a good thing. Enough. Although there were some mistakes, there were no problems with the plan, and it was very stable. The problem was that the evil emperor had a trick up his sleeve, and no one expected it. The Alliance Master was able to use the heavenly tribulation to restrain the evil emperor. That already proves a lot of things. The Sword Edge region lord shouted from the side. If the region lord's morale was low, they would die even faster. Some things can only be admitted. Don't blame the Alliance Master. Instead of saying that it's the Alliance Master's problem, it's all our problems. Who would have thought that there would be a heavenly divine screen? Without that thing, we would have escaped long ago. And it was the Alliance Master who helped us escape. The cloud-piercing region lord also spoke up for Tianyun. Tianyun's decision was definitely not wrong. Although it was a little unexpected, it was still within the acceptable range. As for the heavenly divine screen, they really hadn't thought about it. No one could have thought about it, so they couldn't blame Tianyun. They were the ones who hadn't thought about it, so everyone was to blame. It's actually all our fault. If you hadn't come to save us. Heavenly Goddess Yuji and the others were feeling extremely guilty. So many powerful beings were going to die here in order to save them, and they really felt bad. Alright, don't say such depressing things. Can't you see that the Alliance Master is still transcending his tribulation? Can't you see the hope in his eyes? Why are we so pessimistic? If we keep fighting, there will be a chance. The Fecta region lord's eyes were also filled with hope. He didn't stop making hand seals to break the heavenly divine screen. He wasn't going to despair until the very last moment. That's right, even the Alliance Master hasn't given up hope, so why are we so dejected? Even if we die, we're going to take them down with us. Haha, you're right. Even if we die, we're going to wear them down. That way, we'll be able to buy more time for our own forces. All of their morale had been boosted, and they were only motivated by the hope in Yi Tianyun's eyes. This was the importance of the Alliance Master. If even the Alliance Master had given up on struggling, then their morale would quickly plummet. When that time came, they would definitely be forced into retreat. When the morale of the evil emperor's side skyrocketed, he sneered, "A bunch of fools. Everything will be over once you break the towering sky divine curtain." The evil emperor thought that they might be able to break the heavenly divine screen, but it would take an extremely long time. Judging from their current situation, would they be able to last that long? Soon. Yi Tianyun continued to defend against the tribulation lightning. This was a heavenly god-level tribulation, so there weren't many changes in its pattern, and it didn't unleash any particularly strange techniques. It was only slightly more powerful, but not overly so. As such, everything was within his control. Even though it was extremely difficult to defend against the tribulation lightning, he was still able to defend against it. As he continued to defend against the tribulation lightning, he became more and more powerful, and his progress rate continued to increase. Soon he had reached over 90% progress. Just a little bit more and I'll succeed. Chapter 1722. Kaboom! The thick divine thunder struck down heavily on Yi Tianyun's body, accompanied by a loud noise, and in an instant, a terrible flash of light appeared in the void. Yi Tianyun resisted the divine thunder, and finally bombarded it with a punch. "Break!" Yi Tianyun roared, the power in his body gushed out, and the divine thunder that came down was smashed into countless light spots and dissipated in the air. When the divine thunder was smashed, a beautiful sound came to his ears. Ding! Congratulations to player Yi Tianyun for successfully breaking through to the lower heavenly god realm. Finally, a ray of divine light fell from the sky and fell on Yi Tianyun's body, representing that he really broke through to the lower heavenly god realm. Even though it was still a negligible cultivation, it was a leap to a whole new realm for him. With a ray of divine light falling, Yi Tianyun continued to absorb this power and strengthen his body. Various kinds of energy flowed in his body and began to gradually transform into heavenly god's power. From heavenly lord's power to heavenly god's power, this conversion still takes some time. It's a pity that I can't complete the special upgrade task. Yi Tianyun didn't want to upgrade before, largely because he didn't condense 10 planets. After all, the special upgrade task can give him a lot of rewards. The best reward is the title. Without the title, he would obviously lose a lot of power. But now, if he doesn't break through, then they will be finished. In this state, he can only break through forcibly, otherwise there is only a dead end. It's a pity, but at least there is hope to survive. Ding! Successfully completed the special upgrade task, breakthrough to a higher realm. After condensing the 10th planet, successfully obtained 1 million compression crazy point, 1 million compression proficiency, and obtained the title Super Heavenly God. Super Heavenly God. Against Heavenly God realm, there is a 10-fold increase in combat power. At the same time, there is a suppressive effect. As the gap in cultivation increases, the effect will weaken. What? Yi Tianyun was shocked. Obviously he only condensed 8 planets now. How did he succeed in reaching the standard? This made him very shocked. He felt incredible. Although it was a good thing to be able to obtain it, why did he obtain it? The number of planets was not even up to the standard, yet he could still succeed. What the hell? Immediately after, he looked carefully and quickly found the problem. The reason he was able to reach the standard was very simple. It was because his light attribute and dark attribute were equivalent to 4 planets, which added up to exactly 10 planets. This meant that these 2 attributes were extremely difficult. One planet was equivalent to 2 planets, so this was naturally the result. Everything was just right, and he had successfully reached the target. So that's how it is. What a pleasant surprise. Tianyan was pleasantly surprised. He had thought that he wouldn't be able to obtain this title and reward, but now he could. The Super Heavenly God title was no different from the previous one. It didn't increase one's strength by much, just a little more than 10 times. However, to be able to display such power against a heavenly god was already quite shocking. Ding. Successfully accepted the special leveling mission and broke through to the God Emperor stage. Complete the reward and obtain the effect of full evolution. Soon after, a message popped up, asking him to accept a new mission. As expected, the basic requirement to break through to the God Emperor stage is to possess all attributes. This is really difficult. Tianyan looked at the requirements. There were too many requirements for all attributes. Fortunately, he already had more than half of them. There was only a small portion left. At most, he would need experience. The experience needed to break through to the God Emperor stage was definitely an astronomical figure. Just breaking through to the mid-stage lower heavenly god was already a very explosive experience. Of course, if he killed more heavenly gods, it wouldn't be difficult to break through. For example, there were many heavenly gods right now. If he killed them all, it would be an explosive experience. Tianyan quickly accepted all the divine lights, and his overall strength increased greatly. At this time, the evil emperor was already ready to fight. Once Tianyan finished breaking through, he would immediately rush up and kill him. At the same time, the Fecta domain ruler and the others felt their hearts tighten. It seemed that they were really going to be attacked by the evil emperor this time. It seems that we are going to face a bigger crisis this time. The Fecta domain ruler's heart was very heavy. Now that the evil emperor joined the battle, the pressure will definitely increase. Finally, you succeeded in breaking through in front of me. You are really something. But that's it, I will tear you apart bit by bit. Let's see if you can still be so arrogant then. The evil emperor had already thought about it. He wanted to tear Tianyan into pieces, but he couldn't kill him right away. If he killed Tianyan right away, it would be too easy. He wanted to torture and control Tianyan a little bit. While he was thinking about his plan, Tianyan had already started to level up. Level up crazy mode. Ding! Successfully leveled up crazy mode. Damage increased to 256 times, EXP increased by 256 times, alchemy speed increased by 256 times. A series of effects popped up. There was no change from before. The biggest change was that the damage was doubled. 256 times the damage and experience exploded. Tianyan felt a bit distressed when he deducted a lot of crazy point. But it's still quite good to be able to get so many benefits. Very good, I want the set. Ding, successfully exchanged for Great Witch Divine Set. Great Witch Divine Set requires the cultivation of Heavenly God to equip it. After transforming into Great Witch Divine, the user's healing power increased by 1,000 times, defense increased by 2,000 times, invincibility skill, absolute defense against Heavenly God level attack for 5 minutes, cooldown time is 2 hours. At the same time, the user can heal everyone in sight. The effect varies according to cultivation level. The comprehensive effect is to increase healing power by 1,000 times, consumes 10 crazy point per minute. The price is 1,000 sin point. Tianyan immediately exchanged for Great Witch Divine Set. This is the upgraded version of Voodoo Wood Divine Set. The effect of Voodoo Wood Divine Set doesn't have much effect on his current cultivation level. Only the healing power can maintain a good effect. For example, the healing ability could be increased by 500 times, or the defense could be increased by 1,000 times, and so on. This was something that could be done when one's cultivation was low. When he broke through to Upper Heavenly Lord, the effect was only a few times, a dozen times. It's impossible to give 500 times the effect. Chapter 1723. You're finally done, this will be your end. The evil emperor's eyes were cold. His palms turned into sharp claws. Pitch-black energy constantly surged out from his palms, as if ready to burst out at any moment. Sharp killing intent wreaked havoc in his palm. He was already prepared for battle. Alliance leader, hurry up and run, we'll protect you. The Sword Edge Region Master and the others hurriedly sent a message to Yi Tianyin, telling him to hurry up and run over. If they stayed together, they would be able to deal with the evil emperor. Yi Tianyin turned a deaf ear to the Sword Edge Region Master, completely ignoring the Region Master. This made them anxious, wondering if Yi Tianyin was planning to fight the evil emperor head-on. If they really had to fight head-on, it would really be fatal. Even if he broke through to the heavenly god level, the gap between him and the evil emperor was still huge. Yes, he was the alliance leader, but there was no need for him to bear all the pressure. No need, leave the evil emperor to me. Yi Tianyin sent a message at this time, shocking them all. Before this, they had guessed that Yi Tianyin would fight the evil emperor head-on, but after thinking about it carefully, he probably wouldn't do that. The gap between their cultivation levels was so huge, he had to rely on the heavenly tribulations to fight the evil emperor head-on. Now that he had broken through, without the support of the heavenly tribulations, he probably wouldn't dare to fight the evil emperor head-on. Who knew that he would really do that? Wouldn't he be courting death? Alliance leader, don't be impulsive. Even if you broke through to the heavenly god level, there is still a huge gap between you and the evil emperor. Yeah, the evil emperor hasn't completely unleashed his power. You've seen it before, the power of the evil emperor. Alliance leader, hurry up and come over. They hurriedly tried to persuade Yi Tianyin, telling him not to be so impulsive. Even if he had improved, he shouldn't be so reckless, right? Don't worry, we can't say that we will win this battle, but at least we can escape. Yi Tianyin laughed. In front of everyone, he put on the Grand Magus Divine set. His body immediately flashed with dazzling green light. In an instant, layers of green clouds appeared in the sky, and then began to release rays of green light that enveloped the various region lords. Immediately after, they felt their own healing powers undergo earth-shattering changes. Their broken limbs recovered in the blink of an eye, far surpassing their previous recovery abilities. One by one, those who had lost some of their combat strength instantly recovered more than half. If they stayed a little longer, they would definitely be able to fully recover. Such a shocking effect caused them to be stupefied. Previously, Yi Tianyin was able to release healing powers on them, but it was far less effective than now. Now the effect was like the difference between heaven and earth. Under the powerful healing power, all the region lords recovered their surging battle strength. Perhaps there was no increase in their combat power, but at least when they were not injured, their combat power could be maintained at a relatively high level. Especially now that he was not afraid of getting injured. If he was hit, he would recover immediately after resting for a while. This situation stunned all of them, including the evil emperor. They recovered from their initial decline in an instant. All of them had recovered their combat strength, and were in a very good state. This healing power, why is it so shocking? After breaking through to the heavenly god realm, it can increase to this level? The evil emperor's face was gloomy. This kid really can't be left alive. Just this support effect alone is enough to make it difficult for others to take him down. With such powerful healing power, they would not even care about the injuries they suffered in battle. And when the time came, they would only get stronger and stronger. Even if they could rely on numbers to exhaust them to death, the price they would have to pay would be extremely high. Therefore, Yi Tianyin had to be eliminated, or their side would definitely suffer heavy losses. Immediately after, the evil emperor's figure flashed, and he appeared in front of Yi Tianyin. His pitch-black claws grabbed at the void, and firmly enveloped Yi Tianyin. When he attacked, he would definitely use a killing move to control Yi Tianyin in one fell swoop. Yi Tianyin knew that the evil emperor would not be able to hold back an attack, and he was already prepared. His body flashed with a dazzling green light, instantly forming a powerful defense. Boom! The void claws grabbed at Yi Tianyin, and he was only able to bounce back, but his body was not injured at all. The terrifying defense caused the evil emperor's pupils to shrink. He did not dare to say that he used all his strength in this attack, but at least he used more than half of it. Let alone subduing a lower heavenly god, He could even kill a lower heavenly god in an instant. Who knew that there was not even a trace of injury on the surface of Yi Tianyun's body, which was enough to show how terrifying his defense was. This was under his current state, and his defense had increased by 2,000 times. What kind of concept was that? It was definitely much harder than a heavenly god's spiritual treasure. Of course, as his cultivation increased, it would definitely rapidly decrease. At least for now, it was already quite heaven-defying. The attack that could easily make a hole in his body now could not even leave a trace on the surface of his body. This is your attack? What a joke! Yi Tianyun mocked. The evil emperor's attack did not hurt him at all. And he was finally not like before when he was being beaten up. How can this be? The evil emperor's eyes narrowed. He did not expect that his attack would have no effect on Yi Tianyun at all. When the Fecta domain master and the others saw the situation, they were stunned, and they were extremely shocked. They also did not expect that Yi Tianyun would have such a terrifying effect after breaking through to the heavenly god realm. Not only could it greatly increase their healing power, but it also gave them extremely terrifying defense. It was really terrifying, but it did not have any effect under the evil emperor's attack. Is this where the alliance leader's confidence comes from? Is he so heaven-defying after breaking through to the heavenly god realm? Even if it's the foundation of a 10 refining Earth Lord, it should not have such a terrifying effect. But it's right in front of us, isn't it? As expected of the alliance leader, he is really amazing. They were extremely surprised. They had been a little pressured before, but how could they feel any pressure now? As long as they continue to persevere, the heavenly god curtain will be broken, and they will be able to kill a large number of evil spirit race. Although they can't kill all of them, it seems that at least the pressure will not be so great. At least they can resist for a longer time. It's just that they don't know how long Yi Tianyun can last. As for how long it can last, it really depends on their combat power. As long as they kill more evil spirit race, the more crazy points they get, they can continue, and the consumption is almost zero. It's just a simple consumption of crazy points. Compared to the war of attrition, Yi Tianyun is simply invincible. Chapter 1724. Faced with Yi Tianyun's thick skin, the evil emperor didn't stop attacking. Instead, he immediately unleashed an even stronger attack on Yi Tianyun. Boom! Boom! Yi Tianyun kept blocking the evil emperor's attacks, but the evil emperor's attacks didn't seem to have any effect on him. Under the continuous attacks, Yi Tianyun could clearly feel that he was injured. Although the injury wasn't serious, his defense had been severely damaged. He didn't expect that his defense, which had been enhanced by so many times, would still be broken. Of course, this injury could only be considered a superficial wound. Combined with his heaven-defying healing power, he basically recovered instantly. There wasn't a single scar left. However, it was a fact that his defense had been broken. The evil emperor's attack power was still very strong. If he used it together with the evil deity army and the power of awakening, he could really cause severe damage to him. However, it seemed that his attacks didn't have any effect on him at all. He could barely hurt him. Evil emperor, is this all you've got? Weren't you quite arrogant before? Didn't you want to kill me? What about now? Yi Tianyun sneered. However, he was still very sure of the evil emperor's strength. If he hadn't been exhausted by him previously, he would have been quite difficult to deal with. Damn it! How did this kid become so tough? The evil emperor's heart sank. He had already used all his skills and the towering sky godly screen to strengthen him. However, he still couldn't cause any damage to Yi Tianyun. He had finally managed to injure Yi Tianyun. However, with his heaven-defying healing power, he recovered in the blink of an eye. This was unbelievable. He had never thought that a heavenly venerable would have such a drastic change after breaking through to the heavenly god level. Compared to before, the difference was too terrifying. He was very shocked that even an upper heavenly god couldn't cause any damage to him. If there were a few more of them, how could he fight? Not only did he have a heaven-defying defense, but his companions were also constantly healing. He was basically a walking spiritual medicine. Furthermore, it was a very sturdy spirit herb, one that could not be destroyed. This attack is too weak. I can't feel any pain at all. Can it be stronger? Yi Tianyan swung his arm and gestured for Evil Emperor to continue attacking him. The Evil Emperor's expression was unsightly. He was mocking him in front of so many of his subordinates. If he couldn't kill Yi Tianyan, he would lose all his face. Very good. I didn't expect you to have such a change after becoming a heavenly god. I have underestimated you, but this is the end of it. Evil Emperor took out another awakening crystal. He did not expect that he could awaken again. Under normal circumstances, Evil Emperor could only awaken once. If he wanted to awaken again, he had to completely recover. Otherwise, it would be very difficult to make up for the deficit in his body. This was similar to the ignition of one's bloodline. If one were to overdo it, one's bloodline power would be depleted. When that happened, not only would it affect one's cultivation base, but it would also greatly affect one's cultivation progress. Evil Emperor had used his full strength to execute this attack a second time, and there was no doubt that he had been forced into a corner by Yi Tianyan, and he had no choice but to use his full strength. Awaken! After Evil Emperor swallowed another awakening crystal, the evil deity army quickly rushed over, no longer entangled with the other region lords. When they came to Evil Emperor's side, they quickly integrated with him, and their power began to increase rapidly. Evil Emperor can still awaken? Can he still persist? The Fecta region lord and the others' faces darkened. They had all seen the power of Evil Emperor's awakening. If he awakened again, even if Yi Tianyan's defense was heaven-defying, he would still be injured. Yi Tianyan squinted his eyes. He also did not expect Evil Emperor to choose to awaken again. Evil Emperor could use such a self-damaging move again. It seemed that Evil Emperor's physique was really tough. After a while, Evil Emperor successfully awakened again, and his terrifying power appeared in front of everyone again. However, compared to before, it was still a level lower. After all, the second time was definitely not as terrifying as the first time. Even so, the overall power was still infinitely close to that of an emperor god. It had reached a heaven-defying level. The surrounding void quickly twisted, and together with the power of the heavenly godly screen, it was not much weaker than the first time. Die. As soon as the integration was completed, Evil Emperor charged towards Yi Tianyan. His figure flashed, and he appeared in front of everyone again with extreme speed. In the next second, he was already in front of Yi Tianyan, and then he reached out his hand to pierce through Yi Tianyan's chest, as he had done before. This time, Yi Tianyan was also well prepared. He blocked with his arms and collided with the palm. Boom! The terrifying compressed energy exploded on Yi Tianyan's arms, and he was sent flying. A large part of his arms caved in, and there was black gas constantly invading his arms. Despite his terrifying defense, his arms were nearly crippled by this move. What powerful combat prowess! Yi Tianyan was shocked. He did not expect his heaven-defying defense to almost be crippled. As expected, after the awakening, Evil Emperor's power had reached a level that could suppress him. However, compared to the previous situation where Evil Emperor could kill him with one move, it was still much better. In such a state, with his heaven-defying healing power, he could recover quickly. In a short while his arms had recovered. You are strong, but you are still far from it. Yi Tianyan shook his hand. It looks so casual, as if it doesn't hurt or itch. He doesn't feel anything at all. Evil Emperor's eyes darkened. He had awakened, but he still could not kill Yi Tianyan. Alliance leader, you are amazing. The Sword Edge region master, and the others were shocked. Facing Evil Emperor's awakened power, Evil Emperor had only scratched the surface. It should be said that the injury was not light, but facing the powerful healing power, it was only scratching the surface. Your skin is really hard, but I don't believe you can last forever. Evil Emperor's hand flashed, and a bone spear appeared in his palm. The bone spear in his hand had many sharp thorns. No one knew what kind of bone could be used to make such a weapon. As soon as this weapon appeared, the Fecta region master and the others' faces changed. Obviously, they recognized what this weapon was. When Yi Tianyan saw this bone spear, his eyes turned cold. This was not an ordinary weapon, but an upper celestial god spiritual treasure, and it was definitely a top-grade one. The originally heaven-defying evil emperor, coupled with this terrifying bone spear, could probably cut him in half with one slash. Especially the bone spear, which was constantly absorbing energy from the surroundings. If he was hit, the sharp bone spear would immediately suck him dry. Chapter 1725. The Sky Devourer Bone Blade was the main weapon of the previous generation's celestial emperors. I didn't expect the heretical emperor to get his hands on it. The Fecta Domain Lord and the others recognized it. That was what the records said. The Sky Devourer Bone Blade was actually the evil spirit's exclusive weapon. Ever since it had been sealed in defeat, it had been missing. They hadn't expected it to be in the heretical emperor's hands. The Sky Devourer Bone Blade had devoured the essence and blood of countless cultivators. Now it looked even more terrifying and sinister. One touch and you'd be sucked dry. It hadn't even touched any life, but it was already absorbing all sorts of energy in the air. It was easy to imagine how terrifying it would be if you were stabbed. Etienne's heart sank when he saw the heaven-devouring bone blade. He didn't think that he could withstand the heaven-devouring bone blade's attack with just his body alone. What he needed to do now was buy time. He probably couldn't kill the heretical emperor. Given his current condition, he couldn't do that. Even 256 times his strength wouldn't work. Although he hadn't used it, he knew he couldn't kill the heretical emperor. Especially now that he had taken out the heaven-devouring bone blade. This was the first time he had taken out a weapon. Previously, he had dealt with them empty-handed. This meant that the heretical emperor still had a lot of power he hadn't used. If he did, he'd probably reach an even more terrifying level. The heretical emperor didn't want to use his full strength. This was the arrogance of a superior. It would be too embarrassing to use it all. How could he not lose face if he had to use his full strength to deal with a small fry? But that was precisely why Etienne felt so relaxed. Those who disdained to use their full strength to fight would usually be those who underestimated his existence, and would be instantly killed. The heretical emperor was an exception. The power he possessed had reached a heaven-defying level, and he couldn't deal with him. It'll be your honor to die by the Sky Devourer Bone Blade. Become one of us. The heretical emperor swept up a beam of black light and tore through space, slashing toward Etienne. He no longer wanted to control Etienne. He just wanted to destroy Etienne. Black light flashed, and it was like the world was being devoured by this darkness. Everything disappeared, including the surrounding energy, space, and light. Everything was being devoured by the heaven-devouring bone blade. As long as it was touched by the heaven-devouring bone blade, it would all be sucked inside. In the blink of an eye, it was right in front of Etienne. The entire void was frozen in place, completely devoured by the heaven-devouring bone blade. Before the attack even reached him, Etienne felt his body being sucked dry bit by bit. The energy on the surface of his body was being absorbed by the heaven-devouring bone blade. The surface was even beginning to turn into energy and dissipate bit by bit. If one were to observe it carefully, they would see that it was being absorbed at a speed visible to the naked eye. There was no pain at all. It was quickly turned into energy and devoured by the heaven-devouring bone blade. Invincible. In an instant, Etienne did not hesitate at all. He immediately used his strongest move. As long as it was a heavenly god-level attack, he would be invincible for 5 minutes. The evil emperor was infinitely close to becoming a god emperor, but he was still a heavenly god and not a god emperor. The moment he released it, there was a ding sound. A layer of faint green shield appeared on the surface of his body. After the shield was formed, there was no problem with his body, and he was no longer being absorbed. At the same time, Etienne took the attack head-on. It was not that he did not want to dodge, but the evil emperor was too fast. It was really an instant, so fast that they could not see it clearly. Boom! The heavy sword slashed over, and Etienne was sent flying. He was invincible, but invincible did not mean that he would not be sent flying. It just meant that he would not be injured. The terrifying impact came pressing over, and after Etienne was sent flying for a distance, he quickly stopped. There was not a single wound on the surface of his body. Forget about being cut in half. Not even a single hair on his body was hurt. This was the power of invincibility. He was absolutely invincible below the heavenly god level. What? After the evil emperor slashed down, he thought that he would definitely be able to take Yi Tianyun's life. Even if he could not kill Yi Tianyun, he would at least be able to cut him in half and absorb some of his energy. But now he found that there was no effect at all. Yi Tianyun was still standing there unharmed, as if nothing had happened. Evil Emperor, why is the power of your sword even weaker than before? Is this so-called heaven-devouring bone blade a fake? Yi Tianyun sneered and began to ridicule the evil emperor. The evil emperor's face sank. This was beyond his expectations. There was no effect at all. This was too inconceivable. He dared to say that even if an upper heavenly god was in front of him, he would be instantly killed. Even if he did not die, he would at least be half crippled. He had tried before, easily cutting upper heavenly gods at the waist. Some of them did not die, but most of their energy was absorbed by the heaven-devouring bone blade, and their bodies were half crippled. But now it was useless against Yi Tianyun. This was beyond his expectations. The Fecta Domain Lord and the others drew a sharp intake of breath. None of them could believe what they were seeing. That's your alliance leader? The one who saved us? Heavenly Goddess Yuji, who was dealing with the heaven-engulfing divine screen, was paying close attention to what was happening. She was truly given a fright upon seeing this. The evil emperor, who defied the natural order, wasn't able to gain any advantage from Yi Tianyun. On the contrary, he was being forced back repeatedly. Haha, that's our alliance leader. He really did save you. The Fecta Domain Lord roared with laughter. He was extremely elated by Yi Tianyun's performance. No wonder Yi Tianyun was so confident. Just this power alone was invincible. Looks like we have a chance to escape. Heavenly Goddess Yuji and the others were extremely excited. Even though it appeared that they had the upper hand, this was only temporary. They didn't know how long Yi Tianyun's current state could last. If he couldn't hold on for much longer, then they would all be screwed. Impossible. The evil emperor didn't stop there. Instead, he charged toward Yi Tianyun again, unleashing one sword strike after another to force Yi Tianyun back. Yi Tianyun was knocked flying over and over again, but he was completely unscathed. The evil emperor was starting to doubt his own life. His powerful attacks were completely ineffective against Enlin. He knew that some techniques could be used to defend against one or two attacks, but he had never seen anyone who could defend against such a powerful attack for so long. What kind of technique is this? The evil emperor stopped, and there was a hint of panic in his eyes as he looked at Yi Tianyun. This was the first time he was panicking. If Yi Tianyun continued like this, then how were they supposed to win? He looked around to see that the morale of the evil spirit tribe members had already plummeted to an extremely low point. After all, the evil emperor was an invincible being in their hearts. Chapter 1726. The terrifying continuous attacks made Yi Tianyun feel some pressure. Fortunately, he had the invincibility effect. To be precise, it was an absolute defense that could defend against any move. As time passed, the 5 minutes were up. Once the 5 minutes were up, he wouldn't be able to use the invincibility technique. As for the 2-hour cooldown, it seemed very short, and he could recover with a little cooling godstone. In fact, it couldn't be used. Cooling godstones and such had no effect on this invincibility technique. Either they didn't allow it to be used, or the grade of the cooling godstone was too low to recover the cooldown time. This was the same as before. Many things couldn't be used, or the effect was pitifully low. Unless it was upgraded, the effects would be negligible and wouldn't have much of an effect. Looks like I have to fight it out with him. I'll fight it out with him first. Yi Tianyun didn't become a punching bag. He kept attacking Evil Emperor. Immediately, he exploded with a crazy damage mode. 256 times the power instantly stacked in his body. Boom. It was filled with an extreme explosive power, and it exploded in his body. He felt his body was full of terrifying power. The void around him was shaking. This was somewhat similar to Evil Emperor. However, it was still much weaker than Evil Emperor. It seemed that 256 times the damage at the lower celestial god level was terrifying. In fact, compared to the peak of upper celestial god, 256 times was still a distance away, and not a short distance. After the explosion, he held the 5-dragon divine spear and charged toward Evil Emperor. This time he wasn't passively taking a beating. He took the initiative to attack. 5-dragon roar. Yi Tianyan didn't hesitate to explode with his strongest power. The 3 Empyrean spiritual treasures released their strongest power. Under the support of such terrifying power, the 3 Empyrean spiritual treasures buzzed as if they couldn't withstand such a terrifying explosive power. The power he had now naturally exceeded most celestial gods. Therefore, it was very normal for Empyrean spiritual treasures to reach their limits. Roar! The terrifying 5 dragons rushed out and instantly enveloped the area. Although it couldn't compare to the heavenly towering god screen, it was comparable to the attacks of the evil spirits. How could this be? The evil emperor's eyes narrowed. He had never thought that there would be such great power. He quickly pulled with his hand, and the heaven-devouring bone blade immediately swept up the pitch-black energy. But it was still too slow. He had underestimated Yi Tianyan's power, and he didn't even have the chance to charge up his power. He could only release his defensive power in a short period of time. Due to the suddenness of the release, the power seemed very weak. When the pitch-black energy swept past the 5 dragons, the energy of the 5 dragons began to be devoured and melted. But soon, the 5 dragons' power pounced on him and crushed Evil Emperor's attack. Boom! Evil Emperor was sent flying, and he nearly lost his grip on Heaven Devourer. Half of his body was gone, and black blood flowed out non-stop. As the pitch-black blood dripped into the void, it quickly condensed into an army of evil gods. It wasn't that the evil emperor's blood was the evil god army, but that the evil god army had turned into blood and fused into the evil emperor's body. Now that it was blown away, it naturally returned to its original form. After returning to their original form, the army of evil gods looked weaker. It was obvious that they had been blown away by Yi Tianyan's attack. Their situation was very bad, and they looked very weak. Even an ordinary divine realm expert could kill them. Under this explosion, many of the army of evil gods were blown away, and Evil Emperor's power was greatly reduced. He didn't expect that Yi Tianyan's attack could cause such great damage to Evil Emperor. This situation shocked the Fecta domain ruler and the others. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. They thought that Yi Tianyan's defense was invincible, but they didn't expect his attack to be even more terrifying. Alliance leader's attack is so powerful? This is unbelievable. I really didn't expect this. I thought that his defense was powerful, but who knew that his attack was also so powerful? As expected, heavenly venerables are extremely powerful, and divine realm experts are even more so. They can fight against Evil Emperor directly. Cloud-piercing domain ruler and the others shouted as they attacked fiercely, and the evil spirits next to them couldn't breathe. After all, most of the army of evil gods had been pulled over, and they were constantly being healed, so their combat strength was extremely high. When they saw Yi Tianyan's ferocity, they fought with more vigor than usual, and for a while, the group of evil gods couldn't breathe under the pressure. Evil Emperor's injuries were recovering rapidly, and the area that had lost a section of his body started to be repaired. However, before Evil Emperor could recover, Yi Tianyan continued to attack fiercely. He wanted to take advantage of his weakness to kill him. Yi Tianyan wouldn't slow down. He immediately waved the 5-dragon divine spear and attacked fiercely again. As he swung the spear, he attacked fiercely again and again towards Evil Emperor. Just an ant, don't be so arrogant. Evil Emperor roared angrily, and the bone spikes on the sky-devouring bone blade in his hand started to extend, and the bone blade enlarged rapidly. Soon, a huge skull appeared on the bone blade, and it wasn't just one skull, but several skulls. Every skull seems to be unlocking a level of energy, and as more and more skulls are unlocked, the energy level is rising steadily. In the next moment, Evil Emperor fiercely slashed, and the 5-dragon crazed roar that pounced over was actually quickly devoured. The two started to cancel each other out, and after a moment, the 5-dragon crazed roar was completely devoured, and then it opened its huge skull mouth to devour Yi Tianyan. However, the remaining power has already become very weak. Yi Tianyan quickly waved his spear, and the skull exploded. As expected of the evil emperor, his power can still be stronger. Yi Tianyan didn't expect this. He still hasn't used all of the evil emperor's trump card power, and now, a little bit of it is enough to drown his attack. This is just as he expected. The evil emperor only used half of his power. If he used his full power just now, then he really wouldn't be the evil emperor. He didn't stop attacking, and continued to fight with the evil emperor. He is unable to kill him now, but it is not a problem to exhaust the evil emperor. Boom! Accompanied by a series of explosions, Yi Tianyan was slightly blown away, and the surface of his body was devoured, and his body began to transform into energy and dissipate. However, soon after he recovered, but he is no longer in an invincible state. The invincible state can only last for 5 minutes. It is impossible to maintain it forever. Oh, weren't you very tough just now? And didn't you say that my attacks are useless? Why are you injured now? When the evil emperor saw Yi Tianyan injured, he sneered. He really thought that Yi Tianyan has an invincible defense, but now it seems that he can still be injured. Chapter 1727. Evil Emperor was immediately angered by Yi Tianyan's words. He is still so stubborn at this time. Don't be stubborn. It seems that your previous move can only last for a short time. At least it proves that you are not really invulnerable, and I can still kill you. Evil Emperor laughed, and when the rest of the evil spirit race saw the situation here, they all cheered up. When they saw that Evil Emperor can't hurt Yi Tianyan, they all felt a little desperate. Even Evil Emperor can't hurt Yi Tianyan, let alone them. Now that Evil Emperor injured Yi Tianyan, it proves that Yi Tianyan is not really invincible. Is that so? Let's try it then. Yi Tianyan's injured area was completely healed in no time. His super healing ability allows him to recover at an extremely fast speed. Even if it's just a small injury, it's really nothing to be afraid of. There is damage, but under such a terrifying healing ability, it's basically equivalent to being ignored. Immediately, Yi Tianyan fought with Evil Emperor again. Evil Emperor has a time limit and energy limit. Although Yi Tianyan also has a time limit, as long as his companions help him kill the enemy, it's not a problem. A steady flow of crazy points is equivalent to constantly replenishing his energy. Everything is quite perfect. But correspondingly, after Yi Tianyan lost his invincibility state, every time he attacks he will be injured. Of course, Evil Emperor is also not much better. Under the repeated attacks, Evil Emperor also suffered a little damage, maybe not as much as Yi Tianyan, but at least he is injured. This kid can still last so long. After Evil Emperor fought with Yi Tianyan many times, Yi Tianyan was injured again and again, but he quickly recovered without any pressure. He has seen a lot of cultivators who can quickly recover from injuries, but after a few times, or many times, they will become weak. After all, the recovery speed of the body is fast, but it consumes too much energy, so after several injuries, it is possible that the recovery speed will slow down, or become a little worse. Yi Tianyan was obviously not one of them. He looked completely fine and was still as strong as ever. As long as Yi Tianyan survived, the vile emperor would be the loser. The Fecta Domain Lord continued to destroy the heaven-engulfing divine screen. Everything was progressing smoothly. More than half of it has been destroyed. Just a small portion is left. Fortunately, I've studied the Heaven Gold divine screen before. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to do it so quickly. The Fecta Domain Lord's eyes were sharp. He had studied it a long time ago and simulated it many times. Everything was in preparation for the next God-Emperor battle. Back then, the heavenly towering divine screen had caused them to suffer severe losses. Hence, it was very likely that it would appear again. The Fecta Domain Lord would definitely put in more effort into his research. Fortunately, he had some achievements, and he was able to put them to good use. The Sky Creator race also learned very quickly. They immediately grasped the method of dispelling it. Otherwise, they would not have been able to dispel it so quickly. It was impossible for the Fecta Domain Lord to achieve such speed alone. Just a little bit more. Alliance Lord, hang in there. They transmitted their voices to Yi Tianyan and the other domain lords at the same time. Finally, after a period of time, A large hole was torn in the heaven-engulfing divine screen. Perhaps it had not been completely torn open, but at least a large hole had been torn open. Go! The Fecta Domain Lord gestured for them to flee. Immediately, a large group of experts fled out of the heaven-engulfing divine screen. How can this be? The Vile Emperor was shocked when he noticed the situation. In his opinion, even if the heaven-engulfing divine screen had been destroyed, it should not have been destroyed in such a short period of time. Now, in less than a day, the heaven-engulfing divine screen had been destroyed. The speed was simply too fast. There was only one possibility. They had mastered the method of dispelling it, and it was a very complete one at that. Tianyan had also noticed the situation. His eyes lit up. It seemed like he could finally escape. He had been fighting the Vile Emperor all this time. It had been really tiring. The Vile Emperor was quite resilient. No matter how he attacked, he could endure and even counterattack. Actually, this was all within expectations. It was just that the Vile Emperor had lasted too long. How long could he last after his second awakening? Especially after such a long battle. The power was still so fierce. The only thing that had managed to injure the Vile Emperor was the first attack. The subsequent attacks could not do any damage to the Vile Emperor at all. Now that the Vile Emperor was prepared, there was no way he would let Tianyan succeed with another sneak attack. The heaven-devouring bone blade in his hand was becoming more and more powerful. It was also constantly draining Tianyan's life force to replenish his own. Perhaps that was why he had been able to fight for so long. Now that his defenses had finally been breached, he could finally escape. Go! Tianyan did not delay. He immediately turned and fled toward the exit, his speed rising to the limit. He had no intention of continuing to fight. Don't even think of escaping. The Vile Emperor was furious. The fact that Tianyan could last so long had already exceeded his expectations. Now that he could even break the Heaven Gold Godly screen, he was even more shocked. If the Vile Emperor managed to escape, then his reputation would be completely gone. Unfortunately, the Vile Emperor's shout was meaningless. Tianyan would only run faster and faster. However, the Vile Emperor's speed was no joke. He quickly caught up to Tianyan in the blink of an eye. Scram! Tianyan fiercely swung the 5 dragons' crazed roar. The 5 dragons quickly swept over and pushed the Vile Emperor back. The damage was not weak. Even if it couldn't deal much damage to the Vile Emperor, it would still be difficult for him to block it. At the same time, Tianyan transmitted to them. Gather together quickly and enter the Fecta Domain Master's internal dimension. Hurry! Yes. They immediately entered the Fecta Domain Master's internal dimension without any hesitation. Through this battle, Tianyan's words had the effect of absolute command. Everyone was convinced of his strength. Nothing was more convincing than powerful strength. In the blink of an eye, they all entered the Fecta Domain Master's body, including the Sky Creators. The Sky Creators' lives were all saved by Tianyan. They would definitely listen to him. Swish! Tianyan's figure flickered. He instantly put some distance between himself and the Fecta Domain Master. He had already escaped from the Heaven Gold Godly screen. He let the Fecta Domain Master enter his internal dimension. Then he prepared the teleportation divine stone in his hand and activated it immediately. Chapter 1728. He disappeared? The Vile Emperor's sword didn't cut Tianyan in half. It only tore a hole in the space in front of him. There was nothing inside. There wasn't even a hair on Tianyan's body, to say nothing of him. The Vile Emperor's face darkened. Just like before, he disappeared in the blink of an eye. No one knew where he had gone. Or rather, he had used some sort of special treasure to allow Tianyan to escape without anyone noticing. And with such speed. Is he messing with me? If he had a treasure like that, why couldn't he use it right from the start? Could it be that he can't use it while he's sealed? The Vile Emperor thought back to what had happened. Tianyan hadn't been able to escape while he was sealed. Once he escaped or the seal disappeared, he would instantly disappear. His expression didn't improve after learning this. This meant that if he wanted to capture Tianyan, he would have to use all sorts of seals. Once he escaped, He would be able to escape with ease, and he wouldn't even know how. He didn't even know what sort of treasure could allow him to escape so easily from right under his nose. Generally speaking, if you couldn't stop someone, you would have to escape through the void. Empyrean God Towercloud had done that. The vile emperor had paid a heavy price to save Empyrean God Towercloud. Empyrean God Towercloud was an experienced Empyrean God after all. He had to be saved no matter what. He hadn't sensed Etienne's escape at all. He had vanished into thin air, just like that. Apart from feeling angry, this also made him feel troubled. Who the hell is this kid? How can he know so many strange moves? Even the Fecta Divine Realm wouldn't be able to do this. The evil emperor clenched his fists tightly. He had lost all face when the Heaven Creator clan was rescued once again, especially when he couldn't defeat the other party. It was a great humiliation. Lord Vile Emperor, the invaders have escaped. Should we give chase? The evil god army flew over and asked. No. Everyone go back and rest. The vile emperor snorted, then turned and left. The rest of the evil spirit army looked at each other. Were they going to let them go just like that? Lord Vile Emperor, are we going to let them go just like that? Not only did they invade us, but they also managed to escape. If word gets out, the evil spirit race's reputation. Boom. The evil emperor waved his hand, and the evil spirit deity who had just spoken was instantly reduced to ashes, scaring the other evil spirits into retreating. My orders are not to be refuted, but to be obeyed. The evil emperor glanced at them coldly, and continued to fly inside. They could only look at each other, suppress the fear in their hearts, and obediently follow. Since evil emperor had already said that, what else could they do? Even though the evil emperor had failed this time, he was still the evil emperor, the most powerful being here. After the evil emperor returned, he sat on the throne with a gloomy expression. Not long after, an evil spirit race walked out from behind him with a trembling body. After taking a closer look, he realized that the evil spirit race was covered in wounds. Logically speaking, with his cultivation base, his wounds should be able to heal quickly. However, it was impossible for him to do so. It looked like an attack mark that had always been on his body and could not be removed. Why did you stop me? They have already killed their way here, trampled on my territory for so long, and still managed to escape. Why can't I chase after them? The evil emperor looked at the evil spirit race with a sharp gaze. Lord Evil Emperor, have you forgotten about the situation with Lord Evil Spirits? It seems like we have the upper hand, but that is not necessarily the case. Many powerful cultivators have buried themselves in the various divine territories. Once you start a massacre, it will cause a battle between the divine emperors. That is, when they come out, they might be sealed. The evil spirit race said with a trembling voice. Therefore, Lord Evil Emperor, you have to endure everything. I know you still have many abilities that you have not used. Once everything is set up, it will be time for them to end. As for those divine territory masters, they will all become your slaves. Moreover, this area is just a small distribution to distract them, so it is not a big deal even if it is destroyed. The evil emperor's gaze was cold. After remaining silent for a long time, he nodded. I have indeed gone mad with anger. At this critical juncture, I have to remain calm. The Heaven Creator race has been captured, and we have indeed lost some support. Fortunately, everything has been set up. What should be done will not change. The evil emperor sneered, and Etienne's figure appeared in the depth of his eyes, but the corner of his mouth curled up into a disdainful smile. Not bad. If it wasn't for this place suppressing this emperor's power, then this emperor's power is really not enough. The evil emperor immediately went to make some preparations. Everything was gradually set up. Etienne quickly brought them to the Three Realms' divine territory, and then released them. When they came out, they were stunned by the scene in front of them. They thought that Etienne would use some method to escape with them. They did not know whether they could escape successfully, but they still chose to believe in Etienne. However, they did not expect that Etienne would directly escape with them to the Three Realms' divine territory. Escaping to the Three Realms' divine territory was one thing, but how long had it been? It was probably less than a short while, and they were already back in the Three Realms' divine territory. What kind of speed was that? Was his ability to tear through space that monstrous? Many heavenly gods could tear through space, then forge a special teleportation space. They could then step over it in a single step. It was similar to a special kind of greater teleportation. This kind of teleportation could teleport very far in one go, but the further it was, the longer it would take. Did the evil emperor ask Tianyan to slowly tear through space and then teleport over? That was impossible. Everything was too strange. What's going on? We're all back. The Cloudpiercer region master and the others were all stunned by Tianyan's move. I used a treasure to teleport back. I paid a huge price. Every time I use it, I can only use it once. Tianyan found an excuse. Such a mystical treasure? Their eyes lit up. The world was vast, and there were all sorts of strange things. It was very normal for such a special treasure to exist. Yes, it's almost impossible to obtain. Moreover, it can only be teleported back here alone. It can be considered a treasure gifted by the heavens. The only problem is that when it's sealed, it can't be used. Tianyan made up another excuse. Otherwise, he would not be able to explain himself. As the Alliance Master, he had to explain himself. Although it was fine if he didn't say anything, it would still make them feel uncomfortable. After all, if such a good treasure could be created, it should be shared. That would greatly reduce the number of casualties. Chapter 1729. They didn't think that Tianyan's explanation was a lie. After all, they believed him because of the protective shield of the god realm of the three realms. That's great. It's a divine tool for escaping. We came back in the blink of an eye. It's amazing. How many times can this thing be used? The Fecta Domain Lord smacked his lips. He really wanted to have it. I think it can only be used a few times. At most 10 times? Tianyan gave a random time. How many times can it really be used is already enough. With this little ability to escape, you're really the most suitable person to be the alliance leader. If anything goes wrong, we can escape together. Not only is it good for escaping, but the key is that the alliance master's strength is incredible. He can heal us and fight the evil emperor. This kind of strength is more than enough to be the alliance master. He's already so powerful after breaking through from heavenly master to heavenly god. If he breaks through one more time, won't he be able to crush the evil emperor? Alliance master, how did you do it? It's the first time in my life that I've seen someone who can fight beyond their cultivation level. It's incredible that he can fight an upper heavenly god. The domain lords kept praising Tianyan. They felt that he was too powerful, especially after breaking through. It was like he was a different person. If not for the fact that his face hadn't changed, they would have thought that another powerhouse had become the alliance master. Tianyan smiled and didn't explain much. It was fine as long as everything went according to their ideas. They could think whatever they wanted. Alliance Master of the Heavenly Cloud Alliance, we don't want to say much. You saved our lives and the rest of our clansmen. We really can't repay you in this life. If it's possible, we want to join you. Right now, we are weak and our numbers are relatively small, but we do not ask for anything. We only hope that we can assist you and destroy the evil spirit race together. Heavenly Goddess Yuji's status was not low. She stood up to talk to Tianyan. Her cultivation was not high, but she was able to represent them. It was very likely that she had a royal bloodline in her bloodline. Tianyan's eyes lit up. He hadn't even mentioned anything, but these heaven creators had actually chosen to join him. This was truly a joyous occasion. If that was the case, he would be able to reach the standard soon. Previously, they needed so many Empyrean venerables. Now that so many Empyrean gods and Empyrean venerables had joined them, it could almost be said that they had almost reached the target, and they had even exceeded it. Of course, it didn't mean that he could join right away. He glanced over and saw that only a small portion of them met the standard. This meant that they still had to continue for a while before they could meet the standard. According to the previous standards, one must have loyalty. If one didn't even have loyalty, how could one talk about joining? Therefore, he had to raise his strength to a certain level before he could be considered to have truly joined. Otherwise, he wouldn't even be considered to have joined. However, according to the current situation, he just had to slowly raise it. Looking around, their loyalty had already reached 60 points. Raising it to 80 or 90 points wouldn't be a problem. They had just joined, so it was impossible for them to simply hand their lives over to Yi Tianyan. Even if Yi Tianyan had saved them, he wouldn't do something like this. They could use other things as payment, but if they handed over their lives so casually, they would be being irresponsible to themselves. They had to deal with the heretical emperor, so they didn't dare to give up all of their lives before they understood Yi Tianyan. It's my honor to be able to join my force. Yi Tianyan looked at them with a stern expression. I know that a large part of the reason why you're joining my force is because we've been fighting against the heretical emperor. You're only joining because you plan to fight against the heretical emperor with us. I won't say anything else. In any case, our goal is the same. I welcome all of you to join us to destroy the evil spirit race and restore peace to this world. Yi Tianyan naturally didn't think that Heavenly Goddess Yuji and the others had chosen to join him because of his charisma. That was all nonsense. They had simply seen that he was quite powerful, and with this alliance, they would be able to deal with the heretical emperor if they joined. Otherwise, they wouldn't join even if they saved him 10 times, let alone once. After all, deep down in their hearts, they wanted to destroy the evil spirit race, and they wouldn't rest until the evil spirit race was destroyed. It was impossible for them to join a force with no future, or with no strength or goals. At most, they would say that they would help and receive various rewards, but it was impossible for them to join. Now that Yi Tianyan had explained it so clearly, Heavenly Goddess Yuji and the others didn't feel awkward at all. They only needed to think about it for a moment to understand what was going on. Heavenly Cloud Alliance leader, it's great that you understand. Even though we have a goal in mind, we will all listen to your orders and strengthen the forces of the God Realm of the Three Realms. Elder Mihao told me just now that the God Realm of the Three Realms actually has a very deep connection with us. And that is the Divine Spirit race. Back then, the Divine Spirit race was our leader, and they led us to fight against the evil spirit race. Even the seal on the evil spirits was sealed with our help. Now that we can join forces again, it's undoubtedly the best way to do that. Heavenly Goddess Yuji smiled. She had immediately learned about the situation after arriving here, and she was able to quickly glean the general situation. It was exactly because of this that she immediately chose to join them. They were once teammates, so it wouldn't be a problem for them to join forces again. Actually, you don't have to listen to my orders. I have a lot of freedom here, so feel free to bring up any ideas you have. My orders aren't the only ones. Good suggestions are the most important, and I don't have to dictate everything, Yi Tianyan said with a smile. He had always allowed his subordinates to control things, and he had to learn to delegate power. Not only was it very tiring to control everything by himself, but it also made it easy to lose people's trust. Another point was that all good ideas would be stifled. Of course, this was mainly because he knew how to use people. Otherwise, delegating power to others would be courting death. Heavenly Goddess Yuji and the others looked at each other, and they were quite satisfied with Yi Tianyan's explanation. They also had many ideas, and if they didn't get approval from the Heavenly Cloud Alliance, they would obviously be extremely unhappy. The Heavenly Cloud Alliance leader's management style is indeed different. The other region lords all hold power firmly in their hands, and are unwilling to delegate power at all. If the Heavenly Cloud Alliance leader can say this, then it's perfect for us. Heavenly Goddess Yuji and the others smiled knowingly, and they all felt that Yi Tianyan's explanation was very reasonable. After that, they didn't talk much, and Yi Tianyan invited the other region lords to the Three Realms as guests. After going through a great battle, they felt both excited and refreshed. Chapter 1730. Yi Tianyan's side was victorious and did not suffer any losses. At most, they were injured, but there were no fatalities. This was an unprecedented achievement. In the past, there had always been casualties. This time, if not for Yi Tianyan's powerful healing abilities, a few domain lords would have died before they could escape. After all, the chances of dying were too high under the siege of so many evil spirit race beings. Especially under the suppression of the evil emperor, the pressure was multiplied. Fortunately, no one died in the end. They even saved all the heaven-creating race beings and killed many evil spirit race beings, allowing them to vent their anger. This made them follow Yi Tianyun's lead even more. In the future, if Yi Tianyun had any plans, they would definitely go with him. After all, it was too safe when they fought. With Yi Tianyun healing them, they could fight to their heart's content. Therefore, if Yi Tianyun had any plans to eliminate the evil spirit race, they would immediately go and kill the enemies without hesitation. It's all thanks to the alliance leader this time. This toast is to the alliance leader as an apology. I didn't really trust the alliance leader before, but now I'm convinced. In the future, I'll do whatever the alliance leader asks me to do. Me too. This toast is to the alliance leader. The battles in the future will be smoother. Let me also toast to the alliance leader. Alliance leader will lead us to eliminate the evil spirit race, so that they can't stay here. All of them toasted to Yi Tianyun. They were all convinced by Yi Tianyun and trusted him very much. Their current goal was very simple. They wanted to eliminate the evil spirit race. This was the foundation of the alliance. After toasting one by one, the Fecta Domain Lord shook his head and said, "There's no need to be so happy. If we didn't have the method to break through and cooperate with our comrades from the heaven-creating race, it would really be difficult to break through. We would probably be exhausted to death. We can't always rely on the alliance leader. There are times when the alliance leader doesn't have enough power. If we're trapped again, we might suffer losses." The Fecta Domain Lord poured cold water on them. He wasn't as happy as the other domain lords. He was very calm. When he returned, he had already concluded many things, especially in this situation. Yes, it was a complete victory, but it was also a narrow victory. Fortunately, we were able to break the heaven gold divine curtain. Otherwise, we really would have been trapped inside, and the alliance leader would have been exhausted to death. I believe that the alliance master has been healing us for a long time, so you must have used up a lot of energy. You have also been fighting against evil emperor, so you must have used up a lot of energy. Sword Edge Region Master took a sip of wine. His eyes were calm, and there was no joy in them at all. When the two of them said that, their expressions immediately darkened. There was indeed nothing to be happy about. A victory was a victory, but it could only be considered a narrow victory. It was fine this time, but what about next time? Perhaps the two region masters want to talk about the aspect of strength? Yi Tianyun also took a sip of his wine and looked at them with narrowed eyes. That's right. Our strength is still too weak. If we only rely on one person, we'll really be finished. Next time, there was a need to gather a large number of experts and head there together. However, they could not send too many, lest their forces be depleted and be taken advantage of when the time came. Sometimes, not only do we have to be wary of the evil spirit race, but we also have to be wary of our own side. The Sword Edge Region Master narrowed his eyes. He was talking about other forces. They might not be the evil spirit race, but they could also launch a sneak attack. In this era, there were many selfish people, and some of them might even be controlled by the evil spirit race. When the time came, they would not know what would happen. That was also why only the region masters were sent out, and the others did not go out. The next time they went out, they would at most send a few elders. If there were more, they really did not dare to go out. In the end, we still need more forces to join us. Yi Tianyun looked at them with a serious expression. If we can persuade the Medicine God Temple. The Fecta Region Master shook his head and drank the wine in his glass. He did not finish his sentence, but they all knew what he was going to say. The Medicine God Temple will join us. Yi Tianyun thought for a while, then looked at the Fecta Region Master and said, "Where is the Medicine God Temple? Let me go meet them, and see why they have not chosen to join us." That's what I was thinking. The Fecta Region Master smiled. Since he had said that, he must have similar thoughts. After this battle, they realized that they had many shortcomings, such as the lack of replenishment. If the Medicine God Temple joined them, their replenishment would definitely be greatly improved. But the premise was that the Medicine God Temple really joined them. The other region masters looked at each other. and saw a hint of anticipation in each other's eyes. If the Medicine God Temple really joined them, their overall strength would definitely be greatly improved. But could they really persuade them? After all, the Medicine God Temple had refused to join them since the very beginning of the Divine Emperor battle. Would they still choose to join them now? This was clearly not in line with their style, especially since they had once had a Divine Emperor. I remember the Medicine God Temple. A long time ago, I asked them to join us in resisting the attack of the evil spirit race, but they chose to refuse. Heavenly Goddess Yuji shook her head, but there was no anger in her eyes. If they refused, it was their own business. She could only say that everyone had their own choice. They all shook their heads. Although they were looking forward to it, it was too difficult to persuade them. So many years ago, they had failed to persuade them. Would they succeed this time? For a moment, the atmosphere was a little negative. They felt that Etienne's proposal might be good, but the success rate was a little low. Don't be too negative. It doesn't matter even if you refuse. I just want to see why the stubborn Medicine God Temple is so stubborn. Etienne's eyes flashed. It's a good thing if you can join us. If you can't, just think of it as me going to exchange for some spirit medicine, and get ready for the war. Yes, the Alliance Master is right. I'm just going to take a look. But if you want to contact the Medicine God Temple, you need someone to introduce you. I can help you. The Fecta Domain Master had some connections in this area. If he wanted to enter the Medicine God Temple, he naturally needed a referral. Etienne raised his hand and looked at them with a smile. No, I'm not going to communicate with them directly. I'm going to sneak in and take a good look at the situation inside. Etienne's shocking words really shocked them. They looked at each other. Their Alliance Master really didn't play by the rules. He chose to sneak in. If he was caught, it would be troublesome. If the Alliance Master was caught, wouldn't they be without a leader? Especially if he was caught, the Medicine God Temple would definitely not let him go. Not to mention killing him, they would definitely lock him up for tens of thousands of years. Chapter 1731. They were all shocked by Etienne's bold idea. No one expected that Etienne would choose to sneak into the Medicine God Temple, instead of going in through the gate. Such an alternative method was likely to lead to a fatal disaster. As for foreign invaders, they would definitely kill them. No matter who they were, they would definitely be killed if they dared to invade their sect at will. The better ones would be captured and locked up in all sorts of ways. If they really wanted to rescue them, they would have to pay a very high price to be able to redeem Etienne. Not only that, but they also provoked the Medicine God Temple. They would have to pay a very high price to trade with the Medicine God Temple in the future. For the same elixir, Etienne would have to pay several times the price. Otherwise, he would not be able to trade with the Medicine God Temple. The price was still relatively high. The main thing was that he would be killed, which would be terrible. But when they thought about it, Etienne's power was so strong that he could even fight against the evil emperor. There were many strong people in the Medicine God Temple, but there were very few who were stronger than the evil emperor. Unless he encountered an extremely terrible opponent, Etienne might really be able to escape. Alliance Master, isn't this a little too bold? The Domain Master's face twitched. Those who had such an idea were all dead. He didn't want his Alliance Master to become one of them. Why do you say that? Etienne looked at him with a smile. The Medicine God Temple is extremely strict. It's almost airtight. It's too difficult to get in. The key is that if you really go in and get caught. The Domain Master said awkwardly, I'm afraid the Medicine God Temple's Temple Master is at the same level as the evil Emperor. It will be troublesome if you get caught. The reason why the Medicine God Temple was not disturbed was that its cultivation was much stronger than the evil Emperor's. Even the evil spirit clan did not dare to provoke them at will. It was obviously not worth it to be killed. You don't have to worry about that. You just need to tell me the location, and I'll take care of everything myself. Etienne raised his cup and drained it in one gulp. He wasn't worried that the area lords would tell others. All of them were now extremely loyal to Etienne. After that battle, their loyalty towards Etienne was extremely high. If their loyalty was low, then there was a problem. Fortunately, none of them had encountered such a situation. The main thing was that they had all passed the screening and were recommended by Cloudpiercer and the others. How could there be any problems? As expected, the Alliance Master doesn't play by the rules. It was the same before. The Fecta Domain Master smiled and said, "Okay, I'll show you the way. To tell you the truth, I've studied the Medicine God Temple. As for how to sneak in, we still need to do some research. In that case, let's sneak in together and steal all their spirit herbs. All of you think highly of yourselves. Do you really think that you're invincible and that no one can do anything to you?" The other area lords looked at the Fecta Domain Master speechlessly. They didn't expect the Fecta Domain Master to have such an idea. "There's no need for that. I'll do it myself." Tianyan hurriedly stopped the Fecta Domain Master from accompanying him. If he could sneak in, he was confident that he could come out. As his cultivation increased, his escape skills must have improved greatly. If the Fecta Domain Master joined the fray, it would be hard to say. To put it bluntly, he would be a burden. Especially since he had mastered so many secret techniques. It would be hard to explain if they saw him. The Fecta Domain Master gave him a meaningful look, as if he understood him. Then he took out an astrolabe and marked the location of the Medicine God Temple. He explained, "This is the area. Let me tell you, you're our Alliance Master. As our leader, you can't make any mistakes. You have your own ideas, and we won't reject them blindly. But you have to know your responsibilities." Although the Alliance Master's capture wouldn't cause chaos, it would cause many problems. Especially since Tianyan played an important role, he couldn't afford to make any mistakes. If he made a mistake, the evil spirit race would be in trouble. Besides, he was still causing trouble at the evil spirit race's side. Who knew when the evil spirit race would pounce on them? By then they would need all kinds of support. They couldn't do it without Tianyan. "I understand. I won't do anything rash. I'm only doing this because I'm confident. I just want to find out why the Medicine God Temple is doing this. Is there something they can't say? Or is there something behind the scenes?" That was Tianyan's idea. He wouldn't be able to see anything from the main entrance, so he could only go in and exchange for the spirit medicine. If he sneaked in, it would be different. He would definitely be able to see more things. The Fecta Domain Master smiled and said nothing more. "Fine. Since that's your idea, we won't say anything more." The other Domain Masters didn't say anything, nor did they try to dissuade him. After a life-and-death battle, they trusted Tianyan very much. They knew that Tianyan wouldn't act rashly. They thought that Tianyan was acting rashly, but after the incident, they realized that Tianyan wasn't acting rashly. Although it was only once, they trusted Tianyan from the bottom of their hearts. "Thank you, everyone." Tianyan reached out and cupped his hands to express his gratitude. After chatting for a while, they all returned to their own forces. They still had a lot of things to do, such as guarding against the evil spirit race's attack. At the same time, they had to build a teleportation formation in their own forces, which meant that all the major forces would be connected to form a whole. Otherwise, if something went wrong, it would be extremely troublesome to support them. By the time they arrived, most of them would have been destroyed, so the teleportation formation was especially important. After they all left, Tianyan gave some instructions, and began to go to the Medicine God Temple. Medicine God Temple? What is it like? Tianyan was looking forward to the Medicine God Temple. At the same time, he really wanted to take down the Medicine God Temple. Once the Medicine God Temple was taken down, the inner divine realm would basically be under his control. Ding, successfully completed the special quest, Save the Heaven Creator Clan. Reward 5,000 compressed crazy point, 50 Heaven Creator Clan's favorability, and 50 other Domain Masters' favorability. This quest is finally completed. When he rescued a large number of Heaven Creator Clan, there was no quest completed. At that time, he was wondering why it didn't appear. Now it seems that the quest completed is to save all the Heaven Creator Clan members. So that's how it is. Tianyan shook his head. He is now waiting for the Heaven Creator Clan to gradually integrate into the inner divine realm. After they fully integrate into the inner divine realm, the main quest can be completed. Another thing is to sneak into the medicine god temple. Ding successfully accepted the special quest, win over the medicine god temple. Reward 10,000 compress crazy point, complete the inner divine realm unification quest, and obtain the title, I am the Alliance Master. Chapter 1732. Roping in the medicine god temple and unifying the divine realm. Just as I thought. Tianyan shook his head. The medicine god temple had more than a dozen divine realms under its command. Although it wasn't a subsidiary on the surface, it was recognized internally. Therefore, as long as the medicine god temple joined, the rest of the forces would immediately follow, which was tantamount to ruling the entire divine realm. At that time, they would have a greater chance to fight against the evil spirit race. No one knew how strong the evil spirit race was, but as long as they gathered together, the success rate would greatly increase. In the face of the invasion of the evil spirit race, they would have the strength to resist. Especially the medicine god temple. It was a medicine furnace that could continuously provide all kinds of elixirs, which had excellent endurance in the war. Therefore, if the medicine god temple could be taken over, it would really greatly improve their strength. Soon, Tianyan came to the medicine god temple, according to the direction of the astrolabe. When he came to the vicinity of the medicine god temple, it was not so much the medicine god temple, but a high mountain surrounded by thick white fog, shrouding the area. Such a huge mountain stood in the void, and was also shrouded by a large white fog. It looked so illusory, like a fairyland on earth. It seemed that he could go in at will, but Tianyan knew that the price of going in at will was to get lost inside and possibly die inside. If he could go in at will, the elixirs in the medicine god temple would have been pulled out long ago. This maze is really profound. If I rush in recklessly, I will really be trapped inside. Tianyan took a quick look and knew what was going on inside. As long as he stepped in at will every few steps, he would immediately be trapped inside, and then he would be discovered by the surrounding guards in an instant. At that time, they would come to arrest him. As for whether there were other killing formations, it was not very clear. Anyway, if he went in at will, he would definitely be trapped. Immediately, he observed for a moment and began to walk inside. When he was about to walk into the fog, his figure flickered and entered the void. The power of the void has a strong effect on any formation. He could easily break in and weaken the effect. Now, with his profound divine inscription master abilities, he could easily walk in without being discovered. After entering, he was immediately enveloped by the white fog. Because the entry point he found was very stable, he was not discovered. Especially under the influence of the void energy, the effect was almost negligible, basically undetectable. Perfect continued to sneak in. Tianyan continued to go deeper. He had originally planned to upgrade his void bloodline if he was discovered and strengthen his stealth abilities. Fortunately, he didn't need to do that and could easily sneak in. After sneaking in, Tianyan quickly went in. However, even if he found a gap, he would have to circle around it several times before he could barely pass through the outer array. After stepping out of the outer formation, Tianyan immediately felt his heart sink as he sensed a powerful force surging in from all directions. At this moment, he didn't hesitate to spend a large amount of crazy point on void bloodline. Ding! Congratulations to player Tianyan for successfully upgrading void bloodline to apex. After deducting a large amount of crazy point, his void bloodline directly upgraded to the apex. Void bloodline is not even at 9th level, and it's already apex. This is different from the other bloodlines before. Those bloodlines can be upgraded to 9th level, but void bloodline is already apex without 9th level. It's too fast. However, after the upgrade, the effect has been greatly improved. Tianyan felt that he has completely integrated into the void, and can mobilize the power of the void around him. As he stretched out his hand, the power of the void quickly surrounded him, and turned into an invisible wall, blocking in front of him. This will perfectly transform into the void, which is difficult for anyone to detect. This power is also difficult to detect. After brushing past him, it continued to sweep to other areas. That was close. Yi Tianyun wiped the cold sweat on his forehead. He was almost discovered. He didn't expect Medicine God Temple to still have a trick up their sleeves. After passing through this fog, the area he entered was guarded by a ray spirit. This kind of array spirit is specially planted with spirit medicine as the array core. It is also a strange living creature. Yi Tianyun looked around and immediately saw a piece of spirit medicine in front of him. As for which one is the array core, it is not clear, or there are several array cores. Because the grade is not low, they are all living creatures, and then they are planted here. When planted here, it can form a living guard. As long as an intruder comes in, it can be detected immediately. There is no blind spot in the area covered. The key is that it is difficult to detect. If it is not for his strong perception, he really can't detect it. If a normal cultivator breaks in, they will think that they have broken into a treasure land, but they don't know that this is a confusing point. When they loot the spirit medicine here, the guards have already arrived. However, the grade of the spirit medicine around is really not low. Ordinary cultivators will really come to loot, but those who can break in are definitely not ordinary cultivators. Even if they are not interested, they will be detected, and guards will come immediately. It's really dangerous everywhere. Medicine God Temple is really not simple. Yi Tianyun quickly floated to the front, avoiding the detection of the surrounding area, and flew to the front area. Soon he avoided this area and came to the next area. After passing through this vast area of spirit medicine, he entered another area again. This time he was very careful. Even if it is to upgrade the void bloodline, he did not dare to take it lightly. Immediately, what came into view is not a special area, but the real inside of Medicine God Temple. What came into view is the same as the outside. There are mountains as far as the eye can see, still surrounded by a faint fog, but this is not a maze, but a rich spiritual chi around it. In these mountains, there are all kinds of spirit medicine, and the spirit medicine planted in each area is different. No matter how many spirit medicine is planted, the rich spiritual chi quickly rises and condenses around. If you practice here, the feeling is self-evident. Your cultivation will definitely advance by leaps and bounds. As expected of the Medicine God Temple, the spiritual chi is so strong. Staying here for a while makes me feel energetic. Yi Tianyun turned his head and looked at the spiritual chi that is about to materialize, which is really enviable. Chapter 1733. The area covered by the sacred medicine temple was quite vast. At a glance, there were all kinds of spiritual herbs. It covered almost the entire area, which was quite a big deal. There were high and low grades of spirit herbs, and different grades of spirit herbs were planted in different areas. There were not many mountains in front of him. In fact, there were only 5. There was a palace built on each mountain. The largest palace stood in the central area, which was obviously the most important palace. Perhaps the temple master was inside, but he had no intention of looking for him. From the moment he sneaked in, he could not come into direct contact with them. Otherwise, it would be troublesome. Hey, little medicine boy. Yi Tianyun happened to see a little medicine boy fertilizing the spiritual herbs in the nearby medicine field and covering them with soil. He was very careful. The little medicine boy's cultivation was not high. He was only at the Lord of Heaven level. In this area, he was the only one managing it, taking care of the medicinal field in this area bit by bit, not daring to be careless in the slightest. Immediately, his figure flashed and appeared in front of the little medicine boy. He stretched out his hand and pulled him into the void. Before the little medicine boy could react, he looked into Yi Tianyun's eyes. Charm. Yi Tianyun immediately used the charming eyes to control the little medicine boy. His charming eyes had not been upgraded much, but it was not a problem to control the Lord of Heaven level. After the charm, the little medicine boy was controlled. He stood there in a daze, waiting for Yi Tianyun's order. Yi Tianyun did not waste time, and immediately began to ask about the situation here. The little medicine boy truthfully told him all the details. Because of his limited status, it was impossible for him to know everything, but he was still relatively clear about the general situation. For example, he knew the distribution of the surrounding area and the approximate number of experts. Of course, there were still many details that he was not clear about, but it was enough. At least he knew the distribution of the area. So that's how it is. Then I'll borrow your clothes. Tianyan directly stripped the little medicine boy and put on his clothes. Then he ordered the little medicine boy to bury himself and hide his aura. After putting on the little medicine boy's clothes, Tianyan really looked like a little medicine boy. Because his aura was restrained, his cultivation really looked no different from that of the Lord of Heaven. After a little circle, he was very satisfied. Not bad, with this clothes, I can go to most areas. This little medicine boy had been assigned to manage the small medicine garden. Basically, this area was managed by the little medicine boy. He would not go to the major temples unless he wanted to pick ripe spiritual herbs. It was not that he could not go at ordinary times, but this little medicine boy happened to be a kind of taciturn kind. This is exactly in line with Tianyan's requirement. He immediately changed into a little medicine boy's clothes, so that he can blend in. After all, there were many disciples in the medicine god temple. Even if someone else was in charge of this area, they really wouldn't know. Under these conditions, Tianyan could really sneak in above board, and was not afraid of being seen through. Under these conditions, Tianyan can really sneak in without being afraid of being seen through by others. The key was that the arrogant disciples of the medicine god's temple did not think that layers of protection could be broken without being discovered. In their view, no one could sneak in. That was impossible, not even the evil emperor. The evil emperor could not sneak in, but Tianyan could. After asking all the questions, Tianyan picked up the spiritual herbs and flew to one of the main temples. Along the way, he did not see any trace of his fellow disciples. After flying a long distance, he finally saw another little medicine boy in another medicine garden. Along the way, he did not see any trace of his fellow disciples. After flying a long distance, he finally saw another little medicine boy in another medicine garden. The little medicine boy just glanced at Tianyan and did not bother to pay attention to him. In his view, they were all on the same side, and he did not bother to look at them. This saved Tianyan a lot of trouble. He did not have to charm another person, and then bury himself in a pit. As he flew, he could see more and more disciples appearing in this area. At a glance, there were high and low cultivation levels. It was not as terrible as the legends said. There were still some disciples with lower cultivation levels. This was normal. It was impossible that there was no reproduction, right? The child that was born would still be sent to this side. The appearance of Tianyan did not attract their attention. He successfully sneaked in and walked to one of the main temples with a small bamboo basket on his back. Along the way, there was really no difficulty. Some people looked at him a few times but did not ask. There were many disciples in the medicine temple, and it was impossible to recognize all of them. The area here was relatively vast, and not all disciples knew each other. When he arrived at the spiritual medicine hall, more and more people began to gather. It was full of little medicine boys, carrying small bamboo baskets with spiritual herbs, which looked particularly spectacular. There were several deacons in front of him, constantly collecting spiritual herbs and recording them one by one. Good, next. The deacon gestured for the next one to come up. Soon it was Tianyan's turn. He took out a bamboo basket and handed it to the deacon. Deacon, these are the spiritual herbs of the jade bamboo garden. Please have a look. The deacon glanced at him and was a little suspicious. The little medicine boy of the jade bamboo garden? Strange, why did he change so much? I've been practicing too hard recently, so it's a little out of shape. Tianyan hurriedly found an excuse. He did not expect that the deacon had seen him before. Thinking about it carefully, even if the deacon only came once in a while, he would probably have some impression of him. I see. Then remember not to rush. Practice slowly. Even if there is an alchemy competition soon, you can't be in such a hurry. The deacon looked at him with concern. He did not expect that he would really believe such a lousy excuse. There is an alchemy competition? Tianyan was taken aback. This little medicine boy really did not know anything. He really did not like to go out. You don't know? Well, according to the records, The last time you came to offer spiritual herbs was almost 100 years ago. Although it was a little long, the spiritual herbs you offered were all the best. The deacon couldn't help but praise him. Although it is good to focus on cultivating spiritual herbs, you should not be too closed off. If you can, you should participate in the alchemy competition. If you get a good ranking, you can directly enter the medicine temple. Tianyan had no interest in this. He just pretended to come in and explore the situation inside. However, with his current status, he could only act in this temple. He had to participate in the alchemy competition before he could go to another temple. Chapter 1734. Tianyan didn't answer the deacon directly. The deacon wasn't the registration office, so it was useless to tell him. After offering the elixirs, he could exchange them for contribution points, which was similar to what he had planned. Or rather, the rules were similar to most forces. They kept earning contribution points to exchange for the things they needed. Although there were so many apprentices managing the elixirs, they couldn't use them randomly. They could only receive a certain amount of elixirs at certain times. As for these contribution points, they could exchange for various elixirs, cauldrons, and martial arts. Although this place was relatively isolated, it was necessary to motivate them. Otherwise, it wouldn't be good for their development if they just sat there and ate. Even if they had a lot of resources, they couldn't give them out casually. It would only raise a bunch of lazy people, and they wouldn't be able to achieve anything in the future. Should I participate or not? Tianyan thought for a while, and decided not to rush. He had to explore this temple first. Everything else would be put aside. Then he pretended to go to other temples to exchange for things. His figure flashed around the corner, and he entered the void. With the void bloodline at the max level, even if the space here was extremely stable, he could still enter it. It was a pity that his bloodline was already at the top level. If he could continue to upgrade it, it would be perfect. With the current void bloodline, there were still some limitations. It was just that it was already at the top level and couldn't be upgraded anymore. After entering the void, he swaggered to other areas of the temple, specifically going to some forbidden areas. However, the so-called restricted areas here were not very interesting. They were all areas where medicinal pills were stored and some grimoires were stored. If they were precious elixirs and the like, he would be more interested. However, they were all ordinary elixirs and treasures. With his cultivation, there was no effect at all. It was targeted at those with lower cultivation, those who were below the Lord of Heaven. Those who were above the heavenly venerable realm had no effect at all. Even Sir Gods had little effect. It was obvious that these 5 temples corresponded to different cultivation levels. There were different treasures inside. This temple was naturally of a lower level. He couldn't find anything useful. There's nothing. Looks like I can only go to other temples. Tianyan didn't stay here. He immediately left the shrine and flew towards the other shrines. When he went to the divine halls one by one, he found that their grades were higher and there were more experts, but he still couldn't find any clues. There was nothing special about them. What secrets? Absolutely none. Fortunately, no one noticed him along the way. With his powerful cultivation and the void bloodline, he could be said to be invincible and invisible. No one could discover him. He also remembered that he had a godly skill, which was invisibility. His level was relatively low, so if he could increase it by a large margin, it would definitely be difficult to detect. However, he felt that it wasn't worth it. Invisibility was a good divine skill, but it couldn't be used in many situations. For example, they had to go through the teleportation formation. Even if they were invisible, they would not be able to hide from the teleportation formation. Once they teleported, they would be discovered. In many situations, fighting was the main focus. Stealth could make it easier to launch sneak attacks, but it was still easy to be exposed. This was the reason why he hadn't leveled up all this time. However, he was starting to think about it now. If he could use it with his void bloodline to launch a sneak attack, it would be perfect. Interesting, it seems that when I have more crazy point, it would be a good choice to level up the invisibility divine skill. Tianyan remembered this idea in his heart. Now there was only the main hall that he didn't go to, that is, the real Medicine God Temple. For the outside, Medicine God Temple is the general name. For this place, the real main hall is called Medicine God Temple. If he wanted to sneak in, he might be discovered by Medicine God, but now if he wants to figure out things, he can only go to Medicine God Temple to check. When he quietly flew to Medicine God Temple, he didn't even get close. He immediately felt a circle of light released from Medicine God Temple. Circle after circle, shrouding this side. When Tianyan approached, he found that the circle of light actually penetrated into the void and rushed towards him. He was so scared that he quickly retreated back to avoid being affected by this circle of light. After quickly retreating from the periphery of the circle of light, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. He could feel that if he was affected by the circle of light, he would definitely be discovered. Sure enough, I can't underestimate everything here. Medicine God Temple is extraordinary. Just in terms of security, it is much more strict than outside. Tianyan frowned. There is no doubt that he can sneak in quietly. As for going in openly, that is also impossible. Looking down, there is only one passage up. There is basically no disciple coming up. Mainly because they are not qualified to come up, naturally no one will walk. If he were to get close, he would definitely be chased out and wouldn't be able to enter. It seems that if I want to enter the inside, I have to participate in the alchemy competition. Tianyan frowned. He wanted to quickly inquire about the news, and then get a hold of Medicine God Temple's weakness. If you want to enter, you have to participate in the alchemy competition, get a good ranking. You can enter Medicine God Temple and get various rewards. After knowing that this is the only way, he turned back to the previous temple and began to sign up for the alchemy competition. Alchemy competition is basically open to everyone. As long as the level of God Alchemist reaches the 2nd or 3rd level, they can participate in this kind of competition. The higher the level, the better. There is no limit. This is only the basic level set. Those below this level basically don't need to participate. After signing up, Tianyan waited for the time to start. During this period, he can only return to the previous area, pull out the disciple, and put him in the house to wait. This little medicine boy has no grievances with him, so naturally he won't do anything to him. He just arranged for him to sit there obediently, cultivate, and rest. Soon after a month, the alchemy competition finally began. Fortunately, he came in time, otherwise he really wouldn't know about the alchemy competition. This has to do with the little medicine boy himself. His level of alchemy is not bad, but he just doesn't want to participate in these things. He just wants to stay here and take care of the spirit herbs. As for fame, wealth, or status, it has nothing to do with him. He just likes to take care of these spirit herbs. Regarding this kind of thinking, Tianyan can only give him a thumbs up. If he can win him over, he will definitely recruit him. Chapter 1735. When Tianyan arrived at the temple, it was already crowded. Many disciples had gathered here, waiting to go to the competition venue. The competition venue wasn't here, but in the open area in the center of the 5 mountains, which was relatively close to the Medicine God Temple. It could also be seen clearly from the top of the Medicine God Temple. This was tantamount to competing in front of the alchemy god, causing many disciples to be incomparably excited. If the alchemy god or the other elders took a liking to them and selected them as a disciple, then they would have a meteoric rise. Tianyan observed the situation around. There were really a lot of disciples, and it seemed that there were still a lot of new disciples. At the same time, he didn't see anyone controlled by the evil spirit race. There was no problem at all, and there was no traitor at all. At the same time, he sighed for the new main force. Each of them was quite talented, and the appraisal I could clearly see their level. Every disciple's alchemy level wasn't low, and they were also quite talented. In other forces, they would be considered above average alchemists, but they could only be considered relatively ordinary here. But it was no wonder. How could the area that focused on alchemists not have such outstanding standards? It could almost be said that they had been influenced by spiritual medicine since they were in their mother's womb. And they quickly mastered alchemy. Their starting point was a lot higher than most cultivators. Naturally, There was no comparison. Their starting point was so high, and compared to them, they felt inferior. But apart from alchemists, they had no other abilities, which meant that there were no divine makers or divine carver masters. They were very pure alchemists. Apart from alchemists, there were also alchemists. At least for now, they were all alchemists. It was unknown if the stronger ones had other abilities. When almost everyone had arrived, the deacon in front of them nodded and said to them, "Time's up. Now head to the alchemy area. Those who came later have already lost their qualifications. Come again the next time it's held." Time waited for no man. If they didn't even abide by the time, what kind of results could they expect? Immediately, the deacon led them down the mountain and came to the central area of the area. There was nothing special here, just a large open space. At the outer perimeter of this open space, there were many spiritual herbs surrounding it. Dense spiritual energy soared into the sky, enveloping the entire area. It made them feel as if all the pores on their bodies had opened up, and it was extremely comfortable. This was undoubtedly the area with the densest spiritual power. The main reason was that there was a huge spirit gathering formation under his feet. The spirit chi released by all the elixirs in this area was gathered here, and then poured into the medicine god temple. Standing right above the passage, they naturally felt the densest spiritual power filling their bodies. Of course, he couldn't casually come here during normal times. He could only stand here during the alchemy competition. This was considered a kind of benefit. Even if they didn't get any ranking, staying here for a while would allow them to absorb more spiritual energy, which would be of great help to their cultivation. Therefore, when the disciples came over, they all tried their best to absorb the spirit chi here to replenish themselves. He would absorb as much as he could, wishing he could absorb all the spiritual energy in this place. Although the density of the spiritual energy was high, it didn't have much effect on Tianyan. He could gain a lot of experience points by absorbing the spiritual energy, but for his current level, it was like trying to put out a cart of firewood with a cup of water. Unless he ate all the spiritual herbs in one go, he might only gain a little bit of experience points. This was the consequence of having a high cultivation level. These disciples had lower cultivation levels, so the effect was naturally the best. There are quite a lot of participants, at least 1,000 disciples. They're all second or third grade god alchemists and above. What a bunch of monsters. Tianyan shook his head. In his realm of the 3 realms, there were alchemists, but there were very few who had reached this level. At most, there would be a dozen of them. There were quite a number of low-grade alchemists, but those who had reached the level of god alchemist and above were too few. As they greedily absorbed the spiritual energy, suddenly, a ray of divine light descended from the sky, enveloping the seats in front of them. Then, a beautiful figure slowly descended from the sky and sat down on the seat. Her white robe fluttered in the wind, making her look like a goddess. Especially the surrounding spiritual energy. It danced over, forming a faint colorful glow that was released in all directions. When the disciples saw this lady, their eyes widened, and they hurriedly lowered their heads and shouted, "Greetings, Princess Little Medicine Fairy." Princess Little Medicine Fairy? Tianyan sized up this little medicine fairy. She was only one word away from the little medicine boy, but her status was worlds apart. Her cultivation level was even at the heavenly god level. With a lift of her hand, all the spiritual herbs in the surroundings toppled over, and even swayed continuously. This ability wasn't intentional, it was because she had the extremely rare medicine god body. As long as they reached the area where the spiritual herbs were, they would jump onto her body. If other cultivators went to look for spiritual herbs, they probably wouldn't even be able to find a single one. But when she entered the forest, all the spiritual herbs appeared and stuck themselves onto her body. Some of the spiritual herbs were still alive, and they would run away. But when they met her, they obediently followed her. It was simply terrifying. Right now, there was a longevity blood ginseng sitting on her shoulder. It was waving its small tentacles, looking extremely mischievous. This longevity blood ginseng was probably tens of thousands of years old, and its rich blood energy could probably replenish one's depleted bloodline power by eating just one tentacle. And this extremely rare 8th or ninth grade spiritual herb was sitting on her shoulder. This really made Tianyan sigh at how the world was so big that nothing was too strange. Forget about the luck goddess's body of fortune, now there was even the medicine god body. This was simply heaven's blessing. Spiritual herbs that others would never be able to obtain approached one after another. The benefit of the medicine god body was that it could raise the grade of spiritual herbs. If a cultivator with the medicine god body stayed with them for a long time, their bodies would also improve. This was the reason why the spiritual herbs were willing to follow them. Similarly, even if these spiritual herbs followed the little medicine fairy, she wouldn't directly eat them. When it was really necessary, she would at most pull out a small stalk, and they would slowly recover. Of course, under the influence of her body, the recovery would be very fast. Thus, those spiritual herbs were very willing to hand over. As long as they could stay by her side, there was no pressure at all. In any case, the spiritual herbs that were handed over could be quickly replenished. Chapter 1736. The little medicine fairy looked very beautiful, just like a fairy. Or perhaps she was originally a fairy. She looked incomparably beautiful. The eyes of the disciples lit up, but they didn't dare to look at her too much, lest they be accused of blasphemy. Tianyan didn't feel anything. He had seen many women like the little medicine fairy. For example, the goddess of luck. As long as her cultivation wasn't low, her appearance wouldn't be bad. Even if her appearance was ordinary, her temperament was amazing, and she still looked extremely beautiful. The more one cultivated, the more obvious it was that appearance was not the key, but the temperament and momentum of the body. It was useless to just have a good appearance. In the end, she would become a plaything of others. Strength was the key. For this reason, Tianyan looked the little medicine fairy up and down. What amazed him the most was the body of the medicine god. Apart from the body of the medicine god, he didn't think there was much else. Of course, there were still some bright spots. For example, talent and cultivation were all very bright spots. The little medicine fairy, the daughter of the medicine god, is really domineering. The descendants of these high-ranking figures were extremely amazing, and the daughter of the medicine god even had the body of the medicine god. It was possible that the medicine god also had the body of the medicine god, and his daughter inherited his talent and physique. No wonder there are god emperors. Elixirs are really helpful to one's cultivation. Tianyan shook his head. Now he knew why the medicine god temple had god emperors. There were so many amazing geniuses, and such a special physique. They looked for extremely precious elixirs, and piled up their strength bit by bit. This way, while their cultivation was stable, they would have more time to comprehend. Only when they comprehended enough could they break through to a higher cultivation level. As long as they were in the early stage of cultivation, they didn't need to worry about anything. They only needed to continue to comprehend the great insights, especially the insights of the god emperors, which naturally gave them some access. If it were any other force that had no experience in this area, it would be like crossing a river by groping for stones. The difficulty was extremely high. From this point, it could be seen that the medicine god temple's refusal to cooperate with other forces was excusable. They were extremely arrogant and disdained to associate themselves with cultivators from the outside world. They were invincible existences on their own. From the looks of it, he should not be controlled by the evil spirit race, but he has no interest in the evil spirit race. Could it be that he really wants to break through to the Divine Lord realm and settle everything by himself? Tianyan checked the surrounding situation. Other than the little medicine fairy, there were a few other elder-level heavenly deities who had descended. However, the true main character was the little medicine fairy. In theory, the others could also be considered the main characters. After all, they were all elders, but they were not as attractive as the little medicine fairy, so they were overlooked. Princess Little Medicine Fairy, I will work hard. I will obtain a higher ranking. I will also work hard. I won't let Princess Little Medicine Fairy down. I've worked hard for so many years just for this moment. It was as if they had been injected with chicken blood. They began to shout loudly and fiercely, all wanting to be the first to show themselves. But at the end, it was a mess. Only when the first few shouted out could it be heard clearly. The rest of them were in a mess. Yi Tianyun, who was at the side, immediately laughed. It had to be said that this kind of situation was not rare, or rather, it was common. This group of young and energetic disciples must be filled with admiration for the little medicine fairy. Even the female disciples worshipped her greatly. There were quite a few female disciples here, and they were almost split in half. There was no discrimination here. The treatment of the female disciples was not bad, at least on the surface. The little medicine fairy smiled and said to them, "I have heard that you have such thoughts. I hope that you will be able to obtain a good ranking here. If there are any outstanding performances, I will also give you a special reward." Special reward? I must obtain Princess Little Medicine Fairy's special reward. I also want to obtain Princess Little Medicine Fairy's special reward. It must be mine. No, it's mine. Their eyes were shining as if they had been injected with chicken blood. They were filled with high spirits and were ready to explode at any time. In the dense spiritual energy here, they did not care about anything else. They only wanted to show off their skills and let the little medicine fairy see their best side. They had never thought that the little medicine fairy would take a fancy to them and then become the medicine god's son-in-law. This was impossible. In terms of status and cultivation, it was almost impossible. The gap between the two was too great. They could only look up to him and admire him. Yi Tianyun shook his head. He had not been in such a situation for a long time. The hot-blooded era had long since ceased to exist. Right now, he needed to have an absolute sense of responsibility. He did not dare to relax in the slightest. All right, everyone, calm down. Prepare to begin the competition. I will now state the rules. During the competition, no one is allowed to disturb the other participants. Violators will never be able to participate in the alchemy competition. When the little medicine fairy announced the rules, her expression became incomparably solemn. There was no longer that amiable expression from before. She was truly like an impartial judge. Shortly after, the little medicine fairy waved her hand and a jade tablet appeared in the air. She waved it forward, and it quickly fell in front of them. There was also a tablet in front of Yi Tianyun. He reached out and grabbed it. It was incomparably smooth and warm. 178. Without a doubt, this was a participant's tablet. It represented one's number. This was a very normal thing and there was no difference. This is your participant's tablet. Those who lose it will be considered a failure. Little Fairy Medicine waved her hand again, and a large bell fell from the sky. When it hit the ground, it made a dong sound. This large bell contains the content of the competition, which is also the content of the first round. However, if you want to obtain the content of the competition, you will have to throw in an elixir. If it is suitable, you will obtain the content of the first round. If it is not suitable, you will not obtain the corresponding content, and will have to refine again. First, let me make one thing clear. If you throw in a pill that is suitable, then you will not be able to refine the corresponding pill. No matter how many pills you make, it will be meaningless. The moment this rule was announced, the crowd was in an uproar. They did not expect that the content of the first round would not be announced by the little medicine fairy. Instead, they would have to obtain it themselves. No one could see what was inside this large bell. They only saw a small opening on the outside that was just enough for a pill to be thrown in. As long as they met the requirements, they would obtain the content of the first round. Otherwise, they would have to refine again. Chapter 1737. What kind of rule is this? This is the first time I've heard of it. Princess Little Medicine Fairy's hosting is indeed different. Making it so special means that we can't even obtain a question. Doesn't that mean we can't even pass the first round? Isn't this a little too difficult? The difficulty is a little high. Everyone was dumbfounded by this rule. In the past, this kind of situation had never happened before. Only when Little Medicine Fairy hosted this competition did a new rule appear. Furthermore, it was very special. This was equivalent to setting a threshold. If one couldn't even pass the threshold, they wouldn't even be able to obtain a question. I believe everyone has guessed it. The reason is that simple. I have set a threshold here. If you can't even pass this threshold, don't even think about passing the first round. Little Medicine Fairy swept her eyes over them and was very satisfied with their situation. As for the time, it will be set to a week. This includes the time needed to pass the first round. Now let the competition begin. Little Medicine Fairy did not explain in detail. With a flick of her hand, a crystal flew into the air and began to melt bit by bit. It was obvious that the time limit would end when this crystal completely disappeared. Everyone was instantly dumbfounded. There was no hint at all. How were they going to compete? Princess Little Medicine Fairy, is there no hint at all? For example, what kind of pill, what grade, what type? Someone immediately shouted loudly, hoping for Little Medicine Fairy to give them some hint. Everyone pricked up their ears to listen to Little Medicine Fairy's explanation. There is no hint. As long as you put in a suitable pill, you will be given the corresponding question. Time waits for no man. The faster the better. If the originally suitable pill is refined by someone else, your chances will become even smaller. The Little Medicine Fairy smiled sweetly, looking like a little devil's smile. Tianyan roughly understood what she meant. It seemed like many disciples would be eliminated in the first round. This threshold was not only about who was faster, but also who was more accurate. It was mainly about being fast. If one was not fast enough, they wouldn't even be able to obtain a question. After all, even if they were not suitable, they would immediately refine another pill until they succeeded. But sometimes it really depended on luck. Tianyan was not one of them. He squinted his eyes, wanting to see through this large bell. He wanted to see what was inside the bell. With the help of his appraisal eye, he quickly saw through the thick bell and saw what was inside. The big-mouthed demonic flower. He didn't expect to find a big-mouthed demonic flower inside the bell. It was the kind that specialized in devouring life. At the same time, it was also a very precious spirit medicine. Because they had cultivated to become spirits, they were somewhat similar to the blood ginseng sitting on the Little Medicine Fairy's shoulder. As the examiner here, the little fairy medicine naturally had a different idea. Her idea was to let her companions help with the examination. However, it was not a problem to get this demonic flower to help with the examination. After all, it was already a spirit medicine, and it had even gained sentience. In terms of cultivation, this demonic flower's cultivation was at the heavenly venerate level. It was more than enough to deal with the Lord of Heaven's disciples. This meant that there was definitely no problem in terms of fairness. The big-mouthed demonic flower, huh? Only the Little Medicine Fairy, who has the body of a medicine god, would be able to get these to come and help. Tianyan shook his head. It was impossible for ordinary disciples to know what was inside. Only heavenly venerates and above would know what was inside the bell. This meant that only Tianyan knew what was inside. Who would have thought that Tianyan would hide it so deeply? After the void bloodline was upgraded to the maximum level, it could also hide one's cultivation. Unless one reached out and grabbed someone's body, they wouldn't be able to detect it even if an upper-level celestial was standing right in front of them. This was the benefit of the void bloodline. It could completely hide one's cultivation. Upgrading it to the maximum level would not be a loss at all. In the future, it could be used to deceive enemies and become a model of pretending to be a pig to eat a tiger. After knowing that the big-mouthed demonic flower was inside, Tianyan felt that it would be much easier to deal with it. He just needed to target it a little. The big-mouthed demonic flower liked fire attribute and metal attribute items. Basically, as long as it matched these two attributes, it would definitely succeed. Then, he turned and walked over to the spirit medicine at the side. The materials provided for the alchemy competition were actually all in the vicinity. The spirit medicine around the competition venue could all be used to refine elixirs. The closer to the periphery, the higher the grade. However, if one didn't match the requirements and picked a high-grade spirit medicine to refine, it would be equivalent to getting 0 points. They might even be criticized for being wasteful. Generally speaking, no one would do this. In any case, any elixir refined here could not be taken away. Hence, no matter how many spirit medicines were given, it would be meaningless. In any case, they could not be taken away. If the refinement failed, they would be blamed instead. It was really not worth it. While everyone was thinking, Tianyan took the lead and went out to look for spirit medicine. He was considered to be the fastest. When the others saw this, they were slightly taken aback. Then they quickly went out to pick spirit medicine. They did not know what elixir they were refining. In any case, they would refine it first. It was just that the herbs they chose to refine were not of very low grade. This way it would be a little safer. Tianyan did not choose any high-grade spirit medicine. He just randomly picked up 2 spirit medicines and walked over to refine them. With a slight lift of his hand, flames appeared and he began to refine the spirit medicine. Speaking of which, he had not refined elixirs for a long time. He had been busy with all kinds of battles. It had been a long time since he had the free time to refine elixirs. Now that he was refining elixirs, he still had some nostalgia. As the grade was relatively low, he easily succeeded with a little refining a very ordinary grade elixir. The other disciples glanced at it and felt very curious. Refining so fast. This grade should be very low, right? It can't be. This kid can't think that he can pass with such a low grade, right? God knows. He looks very unfamiliar. It seems like he doesn't move around much. Anyway, he is the one who will be embarrassed. I don't want to be embarrassed. I want to succeed in one go. None of them were optimistic about Tianyan. They felt that Tianyan was silly. If it were other examiners, they might be more casual. But in front of the little fairy medicine, they still had to perform. Even if they failed, at least the elixir they presented would not be deceptive. Tianyan could not be bothered with them. He came in front of the big bell and threw the elixir into it. The big-mouthed demonic flower inside swallowed the elixir without hesitation. After a while, it shook in the big bell and nodded its head in satisfaction. Then, it spat out a stone slab and it landed in Tianyan's hand. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.